order the board meeting for today, January 21st. July. I'm so sorry. I'm telling you, I get so much sleep. Like to call this meeting together for July 21st, 2026, little shortly after 7 for the Village Board of Oak Park. Can we call to order?
Trustee Eder.
Here.
Trustee Leving Jacobson.
Here.
Trustee Straw.
Present.
Trustee Taglia.
Here.
Trustee Wesley.
Here.
President Pro Tem Enyia.
Here. Thank you. Before we get started with the rest of the minutes, I'm going to make the suggestion that we move item N and O in succession before public comment, correct?
Yes. So before the minutes, actually.
I mean, before consent agenda, sorry, before, yeah.
Yeah, so we're going to move it up. We're going to move it up before non-agenda public comment.
Okay, thank you.
That's where we'll place it. Yep.
Any objections? Seeing none heard. So we'll move on to the agenda approval. Could we get the roll call from our junior deputy clerks?
Trustee Eder.
Yes.
Trustee Leving Jacobson.
Yes.
Trustee Straw.
Yes.
Trustee Taglia.
Yes. Trustee Wesley.
Yes.
Trustee Pro Tem Enyia.
Yes. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Who motioned and seconded?
Yeah. Now I'd like to get a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Minutes.
Oh, yeah. Can we get roll call for the minutes, please?
Motion.
Motion, please, sorry.
So moved. To approve the minutes from last meeting, is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so moved.
Second.
Trustee Eder.
Yes.
Trustee Leving Jacobson.
Yes.
Trustee Straw. Trustee Taglia.
Yes.
Trustee Wesley.
Yes.
President Pro Tem Enyia.
Yes.
Very good. There you go. Very good.
No worries. Thank you so much. Clerk Waters, do we have any non-agenda public comment?
We're going to do the O first. Before we go into,
No. Sorry, would you like to tell us a little bit about the Deputy Village Clerk program?
I sure would. Thank you so much. Over the past 2 weeks, our junior deputy clerks have received an inside look at how local government works and how they can help shape their community. So it's really awesome that everyone is here in this building today because they see firsthand what community looks like. Students explored Oak Park's council manager form of government, learned about our 7 local taxing bodies, discussed the importance of transparency and voter participation, and toured several village departments. They also examined handwritten village records dating back to 1902, connecting the clerk's historic record-keeping responsibilities with our ongoing work to preserve those records for future generations. During lunch conversations with trustees Derek Eder and Chibike Enyia, students asked thoughtful questions about climate action, public safety, village facilities, taxes, and the conditions within their schools. They were encouraged to bring their concerns directly to the appropriate elected boards and to recognize that their voices can influence public decisions, even before they are old enough to vote. Tonight, they take another important step in their civic journey by joining us at the board table and helping call the roll. And so please, a round of applause for each of our junior deputy clerks this evening. And if Joe wouldn't mind a photo with all of our clerks and the trustees.
Where do you want us?
In front's great.
Okay.
Yep.
Really quick, just want to acknowledge that Trustee Brian Straw is attending per our protocols via Zoom.
Thank you. Each of our students are awarded a certificate of completion and civic engagement. In recognition of their successful completion of the Junior Deputy Clerk Summer 2026 program and their commitment to learning about local government, public service, and civic engagement in the Oak Park community.
They just want to be around me.
Thank you all.
Just wanted to say thank you all so much. It was a pleasure to hang out with you all for lunch and hear all of your questions. Super fun. I actually ran back home and told my daughter, I was like, you should go do it again. It was fun. So hopefully we can twist her arm and get her in here. But it was a lot of fun. Thank you all for your service. We truly appreciate it. Now we will be ready to hear item N. Do we have any public comments?
For item N? No. Mm-mm. No.
Yes. So we're going to be hearing item motion 26-193, a motion by Trustee Eder and seconded by myself, Trustee Enyia, to direct the Citizens Police Oversight Commission and Pivot Consulting Group to draft a policy within 60 days for board enactment restricting the use of pretext traffic stops related to vehicle, equipment, and other non-safety related violations in alignment with the Dunn Public Safety Assessment recommendations. No comment?
So moved.
Second?
All right.
Do we have any, so there's no public comment?
No
on this
public
item?
comment.
Okay, great. Should I start?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, this is my motion, so thanks everyone for being here. So I have a prepared statement here just to get into a little bit of detail here. So according to the American Civil Liberties Union, millions of drivers are pulled over every year in America for minor violations like broken taillights or tinted windows. Data shows these stops rarely make roads safer and instead lead to racial disparities, violence, and loss of trust in police. Non-safety related traffic stops rarely result in the recovery of drugs, alcohol, guns, or other contrabands. Studies across the country repeatedly find that police arrest drivers for contraband less than 1% of the time, and in some cases as little as 0.3% for all traffic stops. This means that each year millions of people are pulled over in the country, questioned, and potentially subjected to searches or excessive force, all for a law enforcement tactic that produces almost no public safety benefit. The leading cause of car crashes and roadway deaths are speeding and drunk driving, not broken taillights or expired registration stickers. When police spend time pulling over people for minor violations, they have less time to focus on reckless driving and other behaviors that actually put lives at risk. In November of 2022, Barry Dunn issued a report with a number of recommendations for Oak Park's police department, and among those findings and recommendations was 5.9. The Oak Park Police Department regularly engages in pretext stops for the purpose of identifying possible illegal activity. Pretext stops can create an opportunity for bias-based contacts. Recommendation: the OPPD should create a policy that restricts the use of pretext stops. The policy should state that stops, for whatever reason, should focus on the infraction and clarify that expanding the scope of the initial stop is not allowed unless there are specific articulable facts developed within the scope of the initial contact that prompt additional inquiry. The police should also clarify that as an expansion of a stop occurs, these facts must be documented in the RMS and the Impartial Policing Database, IPD. We have data on this. Oak Park Police in 2025 recorded 569 field contact stops in 2025. Roughly 74% of the individuals stopped were black. The report also shows that only 101 of those encounters led to arrests, meaning that more than 82% of stops produced no arrest. And for reference, the black population in Oak Park is about 18%. 54 jurisdictions in the United States have already limited or eliminated non-safety related traffic stops, including Philadelphia, Minneapolis, Los Angeles, San Francisco, Seattle, and Denver. We could become the first municipality, however, in Illinois to follow in those footsteps. This motion calls for staff, the Citizens Police Oversight Committee, the Pivot Consulting Group, to draft a policy within 60 days for board enactment, restricting the use of pretext traffic stops related to vehicle equipment and other non-safety related violations in alignment with Barry Dunn's public safety assessment recommendations. And we can use San Francisco's policy, which I'm happy to share with everybody else at the board, as a starting point. And I also want to make a point here that traffic safety is extremely important, and I want to be clear that this is not for stopping people from speeding, running stop signs, or any other traffic violations that help keep drivers and bicyclists and pedestrians safe. By low-level violations, I really mean things like license plates with the plate number not being clearly visible or lit, missing or expired registration tags, broken brake or taillights, or failing to activate a turn signal continuously for 100 feet before turning. Pivot Consulting Group is a group that's already been engaged with the Village of Oak Park to work on policy with OPPD and CPOC. And I would like to have staff be the ones leading this drafting, along with Pivot and CPOC input, revision, and sign-off before bringing it back to the board. I'd also like this policy to include regular data reporting on traffic stops and the violations cited to track the impact of this policy over time. I thank Trustee Enyia for seconding this motion, and I would appreciate the support of the rest of my colleagues on the board. Thanks.
Does anybody else have anything to throw in? He was very thorough, and he did all that on one breath. No, just want to reiterate that I truly thank Derek for motioning there. This is something that we've brought up for a long time. It's something that Barry Dunn was able to help us identify, and something that we have talked to our office, our police chief about before, and we've had that support, and we're glad that now we can put a date to it, because I think actually having that is the truest form of knowing that change is coming. So very thankful that there is a date to this, and thankful to our trustees for trusting that this is something that, although it will be new to Illinois, it's not new around the country. There are places already doing this. We'll just be the first ones doing it here. So thank you. Is that for item N or no? Is that for N? Yeah, is that for N? Okay, we got a couple public comments. Yeah, no worries. If you got a public comment for item N, feel free before we take the roll. Yeah.
Sorry about that, Christina. Good evening, everyone. My name is Tristan Rogers. I'm a lifelong Oak Park resident, a local public school teacher, and a father of two. Tonight I'm speaking for another local dad who can't speak for himself. Christian Wallace should be home with his family on this summer evening. Instead, his children go to sleep without a father because the people we pay to serve and protect us still treat an extrajudicial killing as an acceptable response to a missed turn signal. That alone is unforgivable. But what's worse is our village leadership released footage with crucial seconds removed and without notifying the Wallace family first. That seems less like transparency and more like damage control to me. This mishandling demands an immediate, independent, civilian-led investigation, and it forces a broader question. Do we even evaluate our village manager and chief of police? What is that process? When was it last done? For years, our hardworking neighbors with freedom to thrive, and later professional consultants at Dunn have given us the same data-driven recommendation. Pretextual stops disproportionately target black and brown drivers, and too often turn violent, even deadly. Restricting those stops is the single most concrete step we can take to ensure we never lose another community member to a police encounter over a routine traffic violation. Now, I want to name something uncomfortable. I look around this room and see many of my privileged neighbors here tonight, not to support Trustee Eder's motion to end pretextual stops, but to oppose zoning changes that would make Oak Park housing more affordable and accessible. At a time when low-income and minority residents are being priced out of our village at alarming rates, I cannot help but hear echoes of those who opposed Oak Park's Fair Housing Ordinance decades ago. I hope everyone can see the discriminatory connection between the types of homes we permit on our streets and the ways in which police interact with our black and brown neighbors. We have a Vision Zero plan to eliminate pedestrian fatalities. Can we bring that same spirit to traffic stops? No one should fear for their life walking to school, just as no one should fear for their life driving through our town or interacting with our police. I shouldn't have to mention the fact that we are even considering handing over $64 million to our police for a new station is absurd when we have no idea how many millions of dollars we are going to owe the Wallace family in a wrongful death settlement. Not another dime until an investigation is completed and findings are released to the public seems like the bare minimum to me. I thank Trustees Eder and Enyia for their courage and leadership, and I urge every trustee here to vote yes on this motion. End pretextual stops so that no family ever again will face the tragedy the Wallaces have endured at the hands of our police. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have another comment?
Joseph B.
Hi, everyone. My name's Joe. I'm an Oak Park resident. I don't know if we're allowed to ask questions. It's just a comment? I guess my biggest thing is for this, under this is like, are we eliminating the police officer's ability to stop anyone for any of these infractions? Is that what this does? I'm confused by how it's implemented, like how it's actually implemented with the police. Like, are they not allowed to stop at all for traffic infractions? And if so, who does that?
Thank you.
I just have a couple of questions, one for Derek and one for the village manager. I'm just curious, Derek, we had two consultants here. One is Pivot, the other is Barry Dunn. Barry Dunn wrote the recommendations. You mentioned Pivot. Is there a particular reason? I'm just curious how that.
Oh, yeah, well, the Pivot's already engaged on these, on policy with CPOC and the Oak Park Police Department, and they've been seen as sort of a good actor by both of those parties. So it seemed like it's already a good working relationship, and I want to build on top of that.
Very good. I just wanted clarification. The other thing I wanted to ask Manager Jackson is, I'm a little concerned about the role of CPOC. CPOC does a good job. They fulfill an important role in our community, but they're non-elected. They're advisory, and they really don't have experience in drafting policy. What are your take on having them collaborate? To me, it should be the consultant with the police department collaborating together, or some iteration thereof. But CPOC drafting policy, that's never been done before. That's not in their scope. So what are your take on that? Could you please clarify that for me? I just want to make sure I understand. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Trustee Taglia and trustee members. Yeah, we understand that CPOC is an advisory committee, similar to all of our advisory commissions. We also understand that we hired the Pivot Consulting Group to work with CPOC and the staff to review the oversight function. That review has been completed. And so at this point in time, we're moving to advance those recommendations into implementation. Staff will be reporting back to the village board on where we stand with that, and there may be some action items for the village board in terms of revising the rules of procedure concerning the operations of CPOC. In this instance, we would actually be, we actually have a draft policy already, to be honest with you. And so we're prepared to review that with CPOC with the support of Pivot, if the action prevails, and then we'll go from there. But we're prepared to we welcome input on anything that we do. So we're ready to go. We already have a draft policy. And so if this action is approved, then we'll proceed in that manner. And, to your point, it's not customary to have commissions write policy, right? That would be in our domain to do that. But it is customary for us to engage the commissions in the review of, proposed policy. We've seen that with other commissions. I don't need to name them all, but yeah.
Okay, that makes me feel better, understanding that this is something that they hadn't faced before, and now the scope is changing, but that the policy is drafted essentially, and you're going to review it. They'll review it as opposed to perhaps wordsmith it. So thank you. I appreciate that, and I'm ready. I'm done. Thank you.
Okay, I'll try to be brief. We have a long agenda. But I do support this. And to clarify, it was in the legislative text that the Oak Park Police Department has already been revising their prohibition against bias-based policing policy to include restrictions of traffic stops. So this is not new as of May 31st. This is something we had committed to as a community, and that this board had committed to upon receiving the Barry Dunn report.
4 years ago.
Yeah, exactly, years ago. And so I think it'll come back, and so we'll have a more robust conversation once we have something to look at. I would just encourage that in that process we do look at existing policies. Trustee Eder mentioned the San Francisco case, but there's models that we can look at. And yeah, I'm really supportive of the role of CPOC in collaborating and in overseeing what has already been drafted and then the final version before we see it. We have a new staff member that we've invested in, and so I think this is an opportunity for us to do some things that we should have done already. But I also want us to make sure we're not thinking that this is it. It's a robust, I just went back and looked at the Barry Dunn report, it's robust. And the real disparities come after the traffic stop. It's the searches and the arrests where we really start to see those racial disparities. And so that means we have a lot of work to do, and I would encourage us to also be incredibly intentional as we invest in proactive, preventative solutions to our public safety concerns, because this is at the end of the problems that we can eliminate much earlier on. So that's where I am. Thank you, Trustee Eder, for bringing this forward and for all the work that you put into it, and Trustee Enyia for all the work that you did before, as well as seconding it. So yeah, you have my vote.
Trustee Straw, do you have anything? You're on mute.
I think this makes a lot of sense, and I'm fully in support.
All right, thank you. Clerk Waters, you want to take the roll?
Trustee Eder?
Yes.
Trustee Enyia? I'm sorry. Trustee Levin-Jacobson?
Yes.
Trustee Straw?
Yes.
Trustee Taglia?
Yes.
Trustee Wesley?
Yes.
And President Pro Tem Enyia?
Yes. All right, our next is item O, motion 26-198. A motion by Trustee Taglia, seconded by Trustee Wesley, to discuss a referendum on the elimination of single-family zoning classification on the November ballot. Yeah, do we have any comment for?
Well, this is agenda item O, correct?
Yes, we are on agenda item O. If you want to invite.
Yeah.
I don't have
Yeah.
any.
Yeah.
I don't have any public comment for that one specifically. Just kidding.
No, it's
There
coming
are actually,
next. It's next.
yes.
So this is O.
We appreciate everyone's patience as we get through this board meeting this evening. So we have several comments. Okay. Chip?
And just a reminder, everyone, we're keeping public comment to 3 minutes. 3 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Chip Popa, and I've been a resident of Oak Park for over 10 years. Tonight, as a constituent, I would like to comment on the trustees' desire to eliminate the single-family zones from Oak Park's zoning map in an effort to create more missing middle housing in the village. I believe, along with many other Oak Park constituents, that more input from the community is warranted and desperately needed. Not just from the small sample extracted by Opticos, the company you all hired to do this task, but by meeting with us one-on-one, like we did with Trustee Straw, and like we will on Thursday with Trustee Taglia. Yes, we need more communication about the impacts of these plans and questioning if changing zoning would really produce the desired results. The character of single-family neighborhoods is a legitimate community interest worth protecting through zoning, and that market forces will not produce housing affordable to middle or lower income households, even when single-family zoning restrictions. Refusal to submit the questions to a public referendum on a matter not requiring special expertise will display hostility to democracy. This board should allow voters in Oak Park to decide whether or not they want to eliminate the single-family zoning by having a non-binding referendum on the question placed on the November ballot. Village Oak Park trustees, I implore you to pause the proposed zoning changes and put the question to Oak Park voters. Thank you.
Lucas?
I'm on Zoom.
Perfect.
Good evening. I'm Lucas Floral. Luke, I'm an Oak Park resident as well. I'm here to speak on tonight's motion to place an advisory referendum before Oak Park voters. And I support it for two specific reasons. It gives residents a meaningful voice in a decision that would reshape neighborhoods across Oak Park. And importantly, it gives the village the necessary time to complete a full analysis. I can't attend the July 28th meeting, so I'm speaking tonight to both the referendum and the vote that follows it. Which brings me to my uncontroversial request. And it stands irrespective of what happens with the referendum tonight. Please commit that the board will not accept a rezoning plan from the consultant on July 28th, not before the full economic analysis is complete and residents have had their say. That's not a stance on whether Oak Park should change its zoning. It's a stance on whether we get the sequencing right. Other communities have already tried reforms like this one with real lessons on both sides. Auckland, New Zealand upzoning led to a meaningful jump in new construction. Chicago's led to higher land values for the affected parcels, but a peer-reviewed study found no measurable increase in permitted housing over the following 5 years. Same policy tool, very different outcomes. It depends heavily on the local market and exactly how the policy is built. And that's exactly why the sequence matters here. Before this policy is finalized, 3 questions deserve concrete answers. What'll actually get built and where? Will it be housing ordinary families can buy or rent? And what'll it mean for our existing homes, infrastructure, and services? Those aren't details to work out later. They're the difference between a policy grounded in evidence and one built on admirable aspiration. However tonight's vote goes, that work doesn't require a referendum. It only requires patience. So my ask is the one any board can grant. On July 28th, please receive the consultant's report, but make no commitment to the map until the economic analysis is complete and residents have been heard. Then build policy around what that evidence shows. Leadership isn't measured by speed, it's measured by the discipline to get it. Thanks.
Michael P. Michael P. Yes. Yes.
All right. Thank you very much. My name is Michael Powers, and I appreciate having a few minutes to share my thoughts. I'm a resident of Oak Park, been a resident for about 13 years. I actually grew up in Oak Park and came back later in life with my wife to raise our family. So my perspective is one of a child growing up here and now an adult living here. In my professional capacity, I'm actually a real estate developer. So I also have a little bit of a different perspective through my work, although I do not build anything remotely residential. So I'd like to give you a few thoughts on this issue that's in front of you. It's a big issue. And I think depending on how far you take the zoning recommendations from the consultant, it could have a very big impact on the village. I think that given the magnitude of the issue, it warrants getting further feedback. I did look at some of the information online from Engage, and I appreciate that they made an effort to get input from the citizens, but if you look at the numbers, they really didn't get that many people's feedback. And maybe the community will be in favor of this, right? But maybe not. And I think you guys as board trustees should get more input. know that the decision you're making is one that comes from the citizens as a whole and not a select few, a couple hundred maybe. I have also appreciated some of the feedback that the trustees have given in email comments. And while I appreciate the feedback, I would like to offer some response to that myself. I heard that it's a complex issue and putting it in front of the citizens may be too much. And I'm extrapolating a little bit by that last part. I read the 28-page document. It's not that complicated. I think one of the things that jumped out at me is just an example. I live in an area that's zoned R2, and under the new zoning, it would go N2. And based on where we live, anybody could build a 6-dwelling unit house, or whatever it would be, I guess, in N2 zoning. Well, that's a pretty big change. It would change the character and the fabric of our neighborhood. I'm not saying I'd be totally opposed to it, but I wouldn't necessarily want to paint it with a broad brush. But I'd also like more time to understand it. And I think Lucas brought up some really good points on his comments. So I guess I would just say, take a beat, get some more feedback from the community, help us understand exactly what it is you're going to do, because this document doesn't exactly say which of these recommendations you're going to take on. So thank you for your time. Have a good evening.
Blaine H. Blaine H.
Good evening. My name is Blaine Hyde. I'm an Oak Park resident since 2013. My comments tonight are related to the process around arriving at some of the potential zoning change recommendations. After reading the Optico's recommendations, other zoning-related documentation, and after a direct conversation with Trustee Straw, and other Oak Park residents that I've spoken with, we're concerned about moving forward with the zoning changes without thoughtful contemplation of the potential impacts. An impact analysis should be done with the same rigor and critical thinking that the consulting firm recommendations stem from. As I understand it, there are no other communities that are legitimately comparable to the Village of Oak Park which have implemented these types of zoning changes, and as such, little insight is available to draw from externally. Without a forward-looking and holistic view of the impact to existing home values, property taxes, schools, infrastructure, parking, and undoubtedly other factors, this zoning change will certainly yield some unexpected outcomes. From what I read, the extent of the forward-looking Optico's considerations was limited to the notion that there may be future incentives required to yield the desired results for the missing middle. Incentive examples cited included allowing increased buildable lot area for multi-unit buildings and local fee reductions for the same. Before any zoning changes should be made, Oak Park residents have the right to be made clearly aware of the expected and potential costs and the expected and potential changes to the community fabric, both the favorable and potentially less so. Additionally, the exploration of a pilot program is referenced in the Optico's document. It would seem that due to the complexity and the unknowns around sweeping zoning changes, at the minimum, a prudent step by the Board of Trustees would be to explore something on a smaller scale before enacting something to impact the entirety of the village. Learnings on a smaller scale would likely confirm or dispute the key aspects of an impact analysis and afford village leadership the opportunity to be best positioned to realize the goal of providing for the missing middle. Please consider deferring the decision-making on this issue and initiate an in-depth impact study and assess its findings. Further, let's walk before we run on this change, and let's get it right rather than get it now. Thank you.
Michael G.
You can start whenever you're ready.
Sorry. Village trustees and fellow Oak Park residents, good evening. My name is Mike Gift. I've been an Oak Park resident for the last 14 years. I'm here this evening to voice my and other residents' concern regarding the very last item in tonight's agenda, and I quote, a motion to discuss the referendum on the elimination of single-family zoning classification on the November ballot. This language makes two things clear. First, the underlying matter is significant. The proposed complete elimination of single-family zoning throughout Oak Park is a significant change that has little precedent. Second, tonight's immediate question is not whether the board should approve or reject that zoning change, but whether Oak Park voters should be able to further advise the board about it. This is a consequential, village-wide decision with potential near and long-term effects on housing production, affordability, density, infrastructure, parking, schools, property taxes, and neighborhood characteristics. Oak Park residents can be and are open to change, but openness to change should not require accepting a predetermined approach without fully understanding the full impact. Residents deserve a clear information, meaningful participation, an opportunity to have their views taken under advisement before such a decision is made. Village residents have already spoken, and we are asking for that opportunity. I provided you all copies of an online survey that was conducted over the past 36 hours on whether or not the people of Oak Park want a referendum, both for or against it. The village's official Shape Oak Park engagement survey reports only 215 responses were collected over several months. By comparison, in only the last 36 hours, 423 Oak Park residents signed our statement supporting an advisory referendum related to the elimination of single-family housing, either for or against. I'll repeat, 423 in the last 36 hours, which is nearly 2 times as many residents as were engaged in creating the proposal to eliminate single-family zoning. Respondents to our survey included residents from across Oak Park, north, south, east, west, including multiple types of housing, including multifamily. If 215 survey responses were considered meaningful enough to help inform our recommendation for elimination of single-family zoning, then voices of 423 residents collected within only 36 hours asking for advisory referendum should not be ignored. An advisory referendum does not take authority away from this board. It simply gives the board better information for exercising that authority. So why should it be ignored? Village of Oak Park trustees, I implore you to pause the proposed zoning changes and put a question on the single-family zoning to Oak Park voters. Thank you all for your time.
John B. John B. No, B as in boy. Chris Som.
Hi again, Chris Som. I'll be quick because I spoke last week, but just want to add to my comments in favor of a referendum. I personally am in favor of this change, which I know some of you are not, but I strongly support an advisory referendum that gives the village a lot more information about which precincts, in particular of our 32 precincts, are more or less in favor of zoning changes and allows you as policymakers to set strategy on how and where you target changes. This is going to be a multi-decade rollout and change to the village of Oak Park, so that was just what I wanted to add, and I'll be respectful of everyone's time and let everyone else, some other people talk. Thank you.
John D. And after that, it'll be Cynthia K.
I'm John Duffy, a 49-year resident of this neighborhood. We are our history. People don't want to admit that. Zoning, single-family zoning was formed in this village in 1921, over 100 years ago. It was reinforced in 47. It's still an obsession to this day. Historians and sociologists are in a complete consensus, or near, that this was motivated by racial exclusion and socioeconomic exclusion. That's our history. Is it still part of us? Sure it is. To what degree, I don't know. For 3 generations, the trustees of this village worked with federal policy, state policy, the realtors of this community, the banking community, to exclude people for class reasons and for race. That's part of the history. It went further. The esteemed historian Michael Zamora documented how Jewish people were excluded by design, by village officials. This wasn't social practice by custom. This wasn't de facto. This was de jure, and it went on for 3 generations. The second thing I'd like to say is that the overwhelming evidence is that communities that do this do not have a decline in property values. That's the fear that's generating a lot of this. My neighborhood will go down. Go back to 68, 10,000 people signed a petition for a referendum on fair housing. It didn't, the village board didn't accept it because they knew the right thing to do was move the thing forward, adjust it when it wasn't working, and they did that repeatedly. And they would do it again. But I want to say I've heard some good things from people. Well, are we going to get more affordable housing? There's no guarantee without making the incentives strong and clear, without following up on the commitments this board and other boards have made to make Oak Park accessible for all people. It was the original 1973 comprehensive plan primary goal. We will lose who we are if we don't ensure that for all people, all classes, all races. We are losing that quickly, and we cannot let it continue. But we must incentivize missing housing or middle housing. It's all over this town, almost. Take some time and walk the streets. It's everywhere, but certain neighborhoods have little missing middle housing. Lastly, this board must protect from the fear of teardowns leading to buildings that are out of place. That can be done through legislation, as well as other ways to incentivize and protect the concerns expressed by many people here tonight. We are our past, we live our history, we are not bound by it. Thank you.
Good evening, thank you. My name is Cynthia Kelly. I've lived in the village for about 23 years, and I'm here just to ask for the voice of the people to be heard in a meaningful way. To me, that means a referendum. We get upset about plastic bags, leaf pickup, whatever the heck's going on with bicycle. This is not that. This is a substantial change. You are here to represent us. That is what you're tasked to do. You can't represent what you haven't heard. And I don't believe that the people's voice has really been heard. I don't know that we have enough information. The argument against is time. Time should play to our favor. Time should play to your favor. Time should give us the opportunity to answer the questions, to get the feedback, to understand the impact. As I was riding my bike, thank you to those new bike lanes, on my way over, I thought, when I go to a march, what do I hear most? Well, this is what democracy looks like. People chant it. Democracy means let the people's voice be heard. This is significant, and our voices need to be heard. So I do hope that you take this to a referendum. I do understand it's not binding, but I think if the people get a chance to speak, then we can all move forward with that understanding and appreciation. Thank you for the time tonight.
Forgive me, Schuler, I believe is the last name.
Linda.
Yes.
It's bad handwriting. Sorry about that. Good evening, everyone. My name is Linda Schuler, and I am a 30-year resident of Oak Park and a 28-year homeowner. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight about zoning reform and the future of housing in Oak Park. Oak Park has long been recognized as a leader in fair housing and intentional integration. For decades, this community has made the courageous choice to reject exclusion and embrace diversity, not simply as an ideal, but as public policy. Oak Park has demonstrated that neighborhoods are stronger when people of different incomes, backgrounds, races, generations live together. As we consider zoning reform, we have a responsibility to ensure that this next chapter builds upon that legacy rather than intentionally undermining it. Historically, zoning was created to promote public health and organize land uses. Yet across the country, zoning policies have often evolved into ways that limit housing choices through large lot requirements, restrictions on multifamily housing, and single-family only districts. These policies reduce housing diversity and contribute to rising housing costs, making it increasingly difficult for many people to live in the communities they help to build and serve. Oak Park has the opportunity to take a different path. As the village considers modernizing the zoning code to address a wider range of housing options, especially the missing middle, duplexes, triplexes, four plats, it must consider the entirety of the village. These home types should not be restricted to certain areas or blocks. Single-family zoning is by its very definition exclusionary, limiting the types of households who want to live in our beautiful community. Land use planning is inherently a long-term responsibility. Even if Oak Park were to eliminate single-family zoning, our neighborhoods would not change overnight. Redevelopment occurs one property at a time, driven by market conditions, homeowner decisions, financing, and community demand. The full effects of zoning reform would unfold gradually over many years, likely decades. The full effects of zoning, not in a single construction season. Existing homes would remain, neighborhood character would evolve incrementally, and future development would continue to be governed by design standards, building codes, and other local regulations. For that reason, this is precisely the type of policy decision that calls for thoughtful planning rather than a campaign driven by short-term fears. I also urge the board to carefully consider whether this issue should be considered for referendum. A referendum held during a non-presidential election is also unlikely to capture the full diversity of voices affected by these decisions. Off-cycle elections typically have lower voter turnout, with participation often skewing towards established homeowners. I'll just add that any consideration for the family zoning also be considered, the inclusionary zoning be considered as part of that. It's part of the affordability that we need in this community, and hope that the village considers taking that up during this conversation as well. Thank you so much for your service and leadership.
Joseph B. Joseph B. And after Joseph, it will be Noah S.
Hello again, everyone. My name is Joe Beer. I've been an Oak Park resident for 6 years, and I didn't prepare a statement, so I'll be a little more blunt. I wholeheartedly oppose the decision to get rid of zoning. Is everyone happy with the parking in Oak Park? There will be less of it. Does everyone want bigger classrooms for the schools? You can get that if you want this. If you eliminate single-family zoning, you will have more residents here. It's that simple. And it doesn't guarantee that you're going to get this middle or whatever everyone's talking about, this middle or this lower. What's going to go up is expensive condos that people can't afford. It'll be more of the same thing. The historical character of this community is very clear. We're always trying to preserve, You know, if you tear down a house here and you build a new one, your taxes are doubled because we want to preserve. What do you think is going to happen when there's no single-family zoning? A developer can just come in and put up a 6-unit or an 8-unit or whatever they want, and there goes the historical home. So it just doesn't make any sense. We are a very diverse community. Let it happen organically. It's already happened organically. You don't need to play God with it. There's 10,000 rental units in this community. 40% of the community is rentals. And so it doesn't make, there's a reason that condo associations have limits to how many people can rent versus own, because ownership is different than renting. And when you have a sense of ownership in the community, there's a different mentality. That's why condo HOAs have these limits. It's not for no reason at all. So let us vote. Just let us vote on it, and you will get the answer from the people of the community. We recently did I don't know exactly who proposed it, but we're proposing getting rid of Ridgeland Pool and putting an indoor pool. That got people very upset. And even though it was a proposal that the Park District Board put forth, it got voted down overwhelmingly because people didn't want to lose the outdoor pool. And this is a much bigger deal than that. So I would say, let us vote.
Noah S. And after Noah, it will be Mary B.
Hello. My name is Noah Sullivan. I'm a 30-plus year resident of Oak Park. I would just like to enter into the record my letter of July 18th to the Board of Trustees. Dear President Skaman and members of the Board of Trustees, first off, I want to thank all the members of the current Board of Trustees for your work, often unappreciated, on behalf of the residents of the village. Public service in Oak Park is not for the thin-skinned. I salute your diligence and patience. In reading the many letters, social media posts, postcards, and flyers regarding the proposed multifamily zoning expansion, I sense that your current work on this critical housing equity issue is not fully understood and, quite frankly, not trusted. I also sense a groundswell of opposition relative to a perceived lack of transparency, whether that perception is true or not. I recently received a direct mail postcard asking me to voice opposition to changing current residential zoning. Direct mail to thousands of addresses is expensive. It seems that people are getting organized and are committing significant money to the cause. This indicates that without broad civic buy-in, even well-intentioned policy risks lacking the democratic legitimacy required for long-term success by the public. As a home rule municipality, Oak Park's Board of Trustees has no legal obligation to put any measure to a binding referendum. However, when monumental shifts in our housing fabric are fast-tracked with compressed public dialogue, confusion and anxiety fill the vacuum. To ensure that any progress made on housing diversity is sustainable and permanently woven into our community, it is your duty to anchor this process in broad public trust. If the board votes to implement these sweeping zoning changes without deep, collaborative resident input, the predictable democratic remedy for opponents will be to organize and replace the current board with new trustees tasked with repealing the measure. A policy built on a fragile civic foundation can be easily undone. A truly open and transparent process is the only way to forge a lasting consensus that serves all Oak Parkers. Transparency is a word that gets used a lot to reduce anxieties around difficult processes. It is time to put that word into practice.
And after Mary, it will be Ralph W.
Hi, I'm Mary Bradford. I've lived in Oak Park for almost 28 years.
And I just have some little basic comments that I have just scribbled, so hopefully I can read them. But I grew up in California, actually, and my mother still has a house in the city I grew up in. And when I came here to speak on this tonight, I didn't even know that it had become a racialized issue here. The city I grew up in is very racially diverse, but it is majority Asian. And then the other groups are white, Latino, and African American, but like it's just extremely diverse. It always has been. And the ethnic makeup is the same now, even though they eliminated single-family housing. So as far as this idea of like it's going to help diversity or whatever, I don't know. I didn't see that where I grew up. Okay, so like I said, they eliminated single-family housing or zoning where I grew up. And what's happened is developers have come in and built huge extensions. And I know that some people here tonight advised against having a fear of that, but that's exactly what happened in the city I grew up in. You know, there's backyard extensions, and then also developers have just torn down housing and put in enormous houses that look very strange because they look like single-family homes, except they're like 3 times bigger with multiple entrances. And on the inside, they're designed like rabbit warrens with a ton of rooms. And when you look at voter registration for these houses, there's like 20 adults living in there or more. And there's no backyard, of course, anymore. So if you have a single-family home with a normal backyard next to these houses, I mean, you can't really call them houses. They just appear to be houses. And they block the light from the remaining backyard. So it's kind of dismal for the people who still have the single-family homes next to these monster homes. Okay, so like I was saying, these new houses sometimes cover the entire lot, and there's no parking. And I know other people brought up the parking, either seriously or joking, I don't know, but there is not enough parking when you have, you know, 6 families living in a home, or, you know, these extensions, when you've got like 20 to 30 adults in there, there is not enough parking available for that. And so when people get home from work, there's nowhere to park, and they start parking in front of their neighbors' you know, driveways, and then there's a lot of tension about that. Okay, so of course there's increased density. Of course there's not enough street parking, obviously, and there's less green space. And the area that I grew up in has now been known for speculation and absentee owners. So these houses that have like 20 to 30 people, they're just owned by owners who are not there. For older people like my mother, it's harder to live in a place like that. And like I said, this has nothing to do with racism where I grew up, because it's not a white and black issue there. All right. So last thing I want to say is, in the bubble here, a lot of people see things a certain way, and then they hear like, oh, San Francisco did this other city did that, did blah, 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 blah. And that's not sometimes what has been done somewhere else was for different economic reasons, and sometimes it didn't work, and it's already being like pulled back. Thank you.
Ralph W., and then after Ralph will be Peggy K.
Hello, and thank you for your time. I've heard a lot of people very eloquently express concerns, and I had got my list that I wrote down here, and I decided in listening to all these, you don't need to hear the same thing over and over again. It's the same. The majority of the people say there should be a referendum because there was no transparency. So in the interest of time, what I've done is just try to cut out a lot of the points on here, and to me it just seems unbelievable that a proposed change of this impact was not more widely publicized relative to pop-up events, only 215 responses, 65 people in focus groups. Unfortunately, I heard about all of this after the fact. You know, maybe I'm living in a cave, I don't know. But I did find out about this and felt it was important enough to at least say something. So I read a quote also there. It said where the village board should be able to make decisions like this on their own. But I would argue the fact that this is a major impactful decision on the village that's not just going to impact
a few properties, it's going to impact the whole village in its entirety. No one knows what's going to happen. Is someone going to buy up the whole village? Maybe. Is someone not going to tear anything down? Maybe. I don't know. In closing, I'd just like to strongly request the proposed zoning change be put to a public vote in the best interests of the village residents and in keeping with the true spirit of democracy, which is also the manner in which the trustees were elected. Also, remember the current residents helped in making Oak Park the beacon that it currently is. Thank you for your time.
I think everybody has spoken eloquently already and said what I was going to say, so I'm going to take it back.
Okay. Frank S. And after Frank will be Charles C.
Frank Stakira, 922 Winona, 52 years in Oak Park, 50 as a single-family homeowner. The referendum is a proven process that really gets Oak Parkers interested and involved and talking and learning and engaged. We had that proven to us with the Park District referendum on the indoor swimming pool, and that referendum drew almost 16,000 votes at a primary election. And the last presidential election, a general election, drew over 30,000 votes. Those numbers dwarf the scant handfuls that attended the outreach from Opticos in March of this year. Very sad results, 32 people at one meeting and 50-something at the other. We have had referendums on ranked choice voting and citizen initiative rights. This question is at least as important as those are. As Trustee Taglia said in a previous meeting, it's one of the most consequential vote I or the board will ever engage in, and it's a once-in-a-generation action that's going to affect the village for maybe 50 years. It is not seem that such a monumentally important decision with such long-lasting impact should be made at the hands of potentially as few as 4 individuals who believe in it. Put it to the people. Send a notice to every household. Tell everyone, not just the interested few, clearly what the proposal intends to do. Spell out the implications, positive, negative, pros and cons, and let the public decide. It's only advisory. Why would you not want to know what the public thinks about it? That would be undemocratic and not transparent. If it's as good a proposal as the proponents assert, the people of goodwill in Oak Park will vote for it. I fear that the resistance to a referendum is based on the feeling that the board will vote a certain way, and I hate to try to read people's minds, but it even seems to project a fear that if the people speak, they will reject it. Vote Democratic.
Charles. And after Charles will be Teresa S.
Thank you, Clerk Waters. And thank you to the board for allowing me to speak. My name is Charles Colson. My wife and I have been 36-year residents of Oak Park. And as just a concerned citizen, I've noticed, read about the housing shortage of available units throughout the United States, and the different things that different communities have done to try to remedy this situation. I share many of the concerns that Joe B. expressed, but I think a lot of it comes down to just one question, and that is the motive for this change. Is it truly to increase the number of residential units in Oak Park, or is it to throw Oak Park open to developers? And I will hope the board will be very forthcoming about their intentions in that regard. I have a wish list of a few things that I would like to see in any voting change. Number of parking spaces per unit. Very much like to see, somebody has expressed concern about absentee landlords. I'd very much like to see a requirement that the owner of the building and property be one of the residents of any multi-family, multi-resident unit. And that's it. Thank you very much for allowing me to speak.
After Teresa will be Owen J.
My name is Teresa Shattuck. I have lived in Oak Park for 35 years. My husband and I started in Oak Park in a 2-flat, and then we bought a house on a secretary's salary with my husband working part-time while he was in grad school. We could not afford to buy our house now if we were just starting out. And the affordable piece is the piece that I find missing in missing middle housing over and over again. When I looked at the community input that was written up, I noticed a disparity between people saying, yes, affordable housing is an issue, and developers saying, we can't afford to build affordable housing in Oak Park. That's a problem. When I read the consultant's zoning piece, I didn't see very many times the word affordable being mentioned. This has me gravely concerned, and I too have wondered about, is this whole thing so developers can come in and be absentee landlords? It has me gravely concerned. I don't feel like those questions have been answered, and I would like to say that when I ask those questions and I get called a racist, it makes me really upset. Thank you, board. I would like to really see this brought to a referendum, and I think the people in Oak Park are smart enough and savvy enough that we can handle complicated issues. Thank you.
Dario R.
Thanks. Good evening, everyone. My name is Dario Roque, and I'm an Oak Park resident. I moved here 6 years ago. I'm originally from Cuba, and I'm myself an immigrant. I want to start by saying clearly, I support more affordable housing in Oak Park, and I deeply value this community's diversity. When my wife and I moved our family across the country from Rhode Island, that diversity was one of the main reasons we chose to make our home here. My concern tonight is not with the goal, it is with the process. This proposal will end single-family zoning in Oak Park. It would allow up to 4 homes on every residential lot in the village automatically with no public hearing, and up to 6 on larger lots near transit and our main streets. A permanent change to nearly every residential block should not be decided by 7 trustees alone. I urge you to support the motion to put an advisory referendum before the voters first. Some trustees have told my neighbors and me that this issue is too complex for a referendum. I will respectfully push back. It is precisely because it is so complex and touches so many lives that the community must be involved. If residents are not informed enough to vote on this, they are not informed enough to have it decided for them. I have also been told this will not affect current homeowners. It will. Rezoning every lot changes what the land is worth, up or down. If land values rise, so do assessments and property taxes, even for families with no plans to sell. And the proposal leaves basic questions unanswered. It contains no study of school enrollment, no traffic study. Oak Park is already one of the most densely populated communities in Illinois, and parking is already scarce. Yet the proposal removes the rule that new homes must include parking on their own lot, anywhere in the village. Those cars will end up competing for space in our streets, and it says no limit on how many of these conversions could happen on a single block or village-wide. Finally, let us be realistic about economics. To make a profit, developers will build 4 to 6 units, not 2. And they will buy the most affordable single-family homes first. We could end up eliminating the very homes that serve the families this policy is meant to help. Your duty is to current residents, not a theoretical community of the future. Please slow down study the consequences, set real limits, and let the people of Oak Park be heard. If this proposal is as sound as the supporters believe, it will withstand a public vote. Thank you.
Cassandra H.
Good evening. My name is Cassandra Hutchinson. I've been a resident of Oak Park since '85 for 5 years, interrupted for 5 years to buy a condo in Hyde Park, returned in '95, so 31 years. My husband and I, we raised our children here. I plan to go out with my feet up here. I love the community. I don't want to be priced out of it. I think some of the underlying issue could be the property taxes. So the affordable housing is going to have to deal with property taxes, and they're going up. People who are retirees, fixed income. Property taxes going up. The affordability that we're talking about, or the diversity, the middle housing and everything, I get it. We have problems all over the country. If we don't really have a proper solution, and if we aren't giving it proper time, we're going to rush into something, and where's the safety net? Not only for those who might come in, but for those of us who still are here and intend to stay here. So time, as many have said, should be of the essence. As one lady indicated, midterm election voting is typically down. So maybe in a couple of years, this might be worth the visit. I'm late to the party. I knew nothing about this until I got a document in the mail. So I'm not even sure where I didn't get the information. So obviously, I'm certainly not part of the survey. Maybe I need to do more due diligence and check the board minutes every week or however often you guys meet. I assure you, from this night on, I will be doing that.
Henry F.
Good evening. My name is Henry Fulkerson. I live at 123 Pleasant Street in Oak Park. And I, as an affordable housing activist and a former president of Housing Forward, I speak in support of eliminating single-family zoning and updating our woefully inadequate inclusionary housing ordinance. Oak Park is in a severe housing affordability crisis. This disparate impact on our Black neighbors, people of color, seniors attempting to live in place is alarming. It is essential to eliminate single-family zoning to once again to build the missing middle housing that doesn't exist. Oak Park, and these are some of the facts that you need to know. Oak Park is in the bottom 7% in affordability in the state. Only 23% of our housing stock is affordable. We need almost double the amount to meet the IHDA standard of being an affordable community to have a minimal affordable housing stock of 40%. Over 44% of the 40% of the renters in this community are housing cost burden, having to spend more than 30% of their income for housing. This number jumps to a jaw-dropping 80% for those with an income of $50,000 or below, and they're classified as severely cost burden. The disparate impact on Black neighbors is particularly egregious, as our Black population has dropped from 23% to 18%. That's because they can't afford to live here. This is appalling for a community that claims to care about diversity, equity, and inclusion. Affordable housing activists understand we have a small group of self-proclaimed MIMBYs, maybe in my backyard folks, who have vowed to block these much-needed initiatives for affordable housing. It is supremely arrogant for MIMBYs to state that perhaps they will allow some affordable housing as long as it did not change the character of their neighborhoods. This racist dog whistle, "Don't change the character of our neighborhood," is a public insult to our black neighbors and people of color. Finally, I want to support trustees Jenna Leving Jacobson and Derek Eder, who have recently advocated that the missing Middle Affordable Housing Initiative and the Inclusionary Housing Ordinance must be tightly coupled and passed together. While eliminating single-family zoning is essential to eliminate the vestiges of Jim Crow housing discrimination, it is not sufficient to address the magnitude of this affordable housing crisis. Thank you very much.
Frank V.
Hi, I'm Frank Rozak, 804 South Humphrey, Oak Park, Illinois. I live in an R7 zone, which means my neighborhood is zoned for 2 flats, 4 flats. And by the way, you guys went ahead and approved a 48-unit building behind my house. So, and I live in a pretty diverse neighborhood. And I come visit you every week. By the time we're done, I think we'll all be good friends. I must be the only person in Oak Park who didn't get that postcard. I'm really surprised because 5 of my buddies and I, Frank, my good friend Frank here, my good friend Kevin here, Kevin encouraged me to move onto a street that everyone says, oh, no, that's too close to Austin, bad place. We got together in another friend's living room and said, we don't like this idea. We ought to try and put something together. In fact, there was no rich thing with us. We passed a hat to put an ad in the Wednesday Journal. I will tell you, I was here as a renter at one time. 2 of my good friends and I moved into a really crappy apartment in Oak Park. And then I moved to Berwyn, a much nicer apartment there. Then I met my wife. She insisted that we live in Chicago. And then I said, no, we have to live in Oak Park because that's where my model train club is. And so 41 years later, you hear me complaining. Now, each of you know that I don't believe in getting rid of single-family zoning. Although Trustee Straw was kind enough to spend some time with me last week and talk to me about the proposal, and I've never seen the proposal. I would like to see it. Because he told me, it sounds just like your neighborhood, Frank, if you just read the proposal. Why don't you guys get me the proposal, please? I'd like to see it. I pay my taxes every year. I've even helped elect trustees. I've been a chairman of a commission. I've been on a total of 14 commissions. So I'm sort of invested in this community. Tonight, oh yeah, by the way, Michael Zamora is a good friend of mine from my synagogue. People like me were not welcome in this community at one time. If you had a big nose like me, better find a new place to live. They sent us to Maywood. Jews were not allowed here. Tonight, rather than telling you something, I'm going to ask you questions. How will this change create further diversity in housing stock in one of the already most diverse housing communities in the United States? Now, mind you, I really do want more missing middle because I could barely afford a house when I moved here. I'm lucky. I'm a veteran. I'm a military retiree. I have a GI Bill. That's how I bought my house 41 years ago. When zoning allows more development per property, how will this affect property values? I honestly don't know, but I'd like to have that explained to me. Who will purchase these new housing opportunities? Will it be friends like my friend Kevin Kell, who talked me into buying my house? Or will it be some rich guy? Oh, I'm out of time. Well, I would keep talking and talking, but I appreciate you looking at your watch, Trustee Enyia, so I don't want to be rude.
See you next week.
Dave M., did you want to speak to this agenda item or non-agenda? Okay.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Dave Marshall. I'm a resident here with my wife,
in Oak Park for the last several years. And I'm glad to see the diversity of opinions here tonight. I want to say, from what I've heard so far, I don't think that the board is going too far in proposing this. I think you're not going far enough. Let me explain what I mean by that. I think we need to consider not just the single-family zoning, but all of the accompanying changes that go with that. I've heard people talk about parking. I would recommend consideration of fire codes as well. There are things that I've seen part of the report. I confess I just got a hold of it, so I haven't studied it, but there are considerations about accessory dwelling units that I do think need to be considered, not just for multifamily use, but for single-family houses as well. Right now, I believe our code says you can only have one accessory structure, like one garage. I would encourage us to do as much as we can for adaptive reuse of single-family houses. If you want to put a accessory dwelling unit on a lot that has a single-family house, today it's my understanding that if you have a garage, you can't have a garage and an ADU. That breaks our rules. Well, we need to consider things like that, because I think there are people who would like to increase density in a way that has minimal impact on the way that the neighborhood looks. And if they can add another dwelling unit through an accessory dwelling unit to an existing single-family house, that will increase the housing stock available and ease the risks, the problem of affordable housing without massive changes. I also want to say, I think adaptive reuse has another phase to it. It's my understanding that right now, in theory at least, it's possible to rent out bedrooms. I know when my wife and I were looking at housing in this area in preparation to move in and select a house, many of the houses that we looked at had deadbolts on all the bedrooms, because at one point in the past, they had rented out rooms. You had maybe an elderly widow who was running a rooming house, or maybe there were a bunch of GIs back from World War II that needed a place to live. Almost all of the houses that we looked at, and these were single-family houses, had bedrooms with deadbolts because at one point they had been operated as a rooming house. If you encourage that, I think you can add to the stock of available units very quickly, minimal cost, and minimal impact to the way that the neighborhood looks. So I would encourage that as well. One other way that I think you can go farther is not just a referendum, because you'll get a numerical answer there, but I think certainly looking at tonight's commentary, more public input in the forms of forums. Voting is one thing, you'll get a number, but you won't understand the reasoning behind that number. So I do support increasing affordable housing, but I would encourage you to make it a broad-based thing and continue to get the input. Thank you.
Kevin K.
Good evening. Kevin Kell, 815 South Humphrey. And by the way, I was going to just talk about the report that was put out, the zoning recommendations. I'm not concerned about the referendum right now. But I do know that right now you're scheduled to vote next week on these zoning changes. So these are pretty exciting times. As we can see, we got people in here, but it's a major decision with very long-term effects. And I understand the board is elected and, has been pointed out, is paid to make decisions for the village. However, I look at it that those decisions should be informed decisions. The recommendations for the revisions to the zoning ordinance just came out, and there's a lot. That's a 33-page document. There's a lot in there to be digested. And trust me, I've tried to do it. My question is, it really goes back to one of my original statements a couple of weeks ago, density. I know that's been one of the terms that we need to increase the density of Oak Park, and I keep asking the question, why? We're already number 6 in the state, and I don't see us having to kick it up. The recommendations in the report
actually create more questions, and I'll go down those quickly. There's a statement, this is for the N1, N2, and N3 proposed classifications. Limited non-residential uses that serve neighborhood needs and are compatible with nearby residential uses. What does that mean? And I put in all three of those. And it's even out of context, it doesn't say anything to me. Increasing maximum building height. And this is reversing a 2002 change to the zoning. Again, I got to ask why. Incentivizing, how is that going to be paid for? I already pay a lot in taxes. I know the majority of that goes to the schools, but the village gets quite a bit of piece out of that. I want to know how is that going to be done. The report even talks about testing the revisions with the inclusionary housing policy. That should already be done. As far as I'm concerned, that should have been looked at when you put these studies together. Height bonuses for public benefit, how is that determined? Eliminate overnight parking regulations. Big problem. We've heard about that. One of the things that is in there is that Friedman non-conforming table. What is it used for? There's nothing that was even said what that information is supposed to be there. There's many other questions that are created out of this. I recommend that not to vote on this, but to have the true public input, have the meetings, explain what's being said, and go from there. And I was going to, if I can, I'll close real fast. Village Board core values and guiding principles. This is on your document for your goals. 3 of them. We build trust through respectful dialogue and board actions. We are transparent and accountable to the community. We evolve to meet the changing needs and desires of the community. Please take that into consideration. Thank you.
All right, I think we've concluded. Anybody else? Did we leave anyone out? All right, I don't see any hands up. Could we, wait, there goes one. Come on.
I had nothing prepared, but I just feel like an extra voice can always be used. I've lived in Oak Park my entire life. I've seen Oak Park change. I've seen more apartment buildings being built. And I've seen Oak Park just get more and more crowded. I've seen parking get worse. I've seen traffic get worse. And I think if you're going to make this big of a change, like so many others have asked, maybe ask us, Oak Parkers, what we think of it, and take that into consideration. Thank you.
All right, thank you all very much. We truly appreciate all of the public comment. Yeah. I'll stay right here. I think for microphone purposes, we got to have you up here.
So I'm David. I'm a 28-year resident here. The one thing that really kind of piqued my interest is, we're talking about missing middle-income housing. But the one thing that I didn't read in the report and haven't had, we had the luxury of talking with some of you, is how are we going to achieve that? There's a lot of verbiage about different buildings and number of units and how much, you can have density on your property. That's great. But we've heard other people say, builders are going to go for the biggest buck. Like, okay, that's great, but how do we ensure that we're going to have housing stock that's affordable, right? We have lots of condo units that have gone up in the last 10 years. Most of them aren't affordable. We tried to make them affordable, right? We try to get builders to do it, and it doesn't work. So I would implore you guys, great, come up with a plan. But is it about diversity? Okay, great, we got pretty good diversity. Or is it about affordability? What I'm not seeing is how we're going to achieve the affordability. And so any additional details you can get for that would be fantastic. Thank
you. Thank you for that. Could you, Village Manager Jackson, give us a breakdown of the timeline of what that sequence of events would look like for the next meetings if this is not passed. What would the steps be, right?
Yeah, I think we could benefit, from clarifying for us, our benefit, for the community's benefit, the next steps. We have some things planned to answer some of the questions that have come up. I think if we're all on the same page about how this gets decided and the sort of this, the sequence of.
Are we talking about those two different questions, or are we talking about
The zoning.
The next steps in the zoning review process?
Yes.
But I don't know if
Yeah, no.
Is that
Yeah.
it? Yeah. So next week, we do have an agenda item planned to review the proposed zoning changes with the village board. And I'm just going to back up a little bit. I think the strategic vision for housing is a document that everyone should look at, that was adopted by the village board in 2024, and it compiles all of the actions, at least in 10 categories, that would be needed to advance affordable housing in the village, among which one relates to the zoning changes, right? So it puts the contemplated zoning changes in the context of the overall affordable housing strategy for the village. And I think it's important to read that document to get context. So after the 28th, the board decides to advance the recommended zoning changes forward. The next step is for the Plan Commission to host public hearings on those zoning changes, proposed zoning changes. In that process, there's going to be an opportunity, obviously, for public engagement. The Plan Commission will dig into the details of the recommended zoning changes, and at some point, we'll conclude that review and make final recommendations to the village board, which we anticipate happening sometime, maybe mid to late October. I'm going to back up again, though. After the 28th, if there's affirmative direction to move the recommended zoning changes forward, there's going to be significant public engagement that's going to occur proceeding to the proceeding to the public hearings. So we anticipate at least four additional public meetings on the recommendations, and we anticipate having those meetings accessible in various places throughout the village. We also will have a virtual option for people who cannot attend the meetings in person. Opticos, as well as staff, will be on hand to answer any questions and any questions that may occur. So there are going to be opportunities for some interaction, some deeper interaction between the public and village officials and the consultants on this topic after the decision by the village board next week on the 28th. Is that helpful, or? Yeah, and I think it's important to you're right, good point. So next week on the 28th is not a final decision on the zoning changes, right? So the final decisions the final decision is made by the village board based upon, after the recommendations come back to them from the Plan Commission. And we anticipate the Plan Commission review will start in September and will likely conclude in October, at which time, when it concludes, their recommendations will be brought back to the village board for consideration for approval.
They will have heard from the community during that time?
Absolutely. So through the additional public participation that we will be initiating at the staff level, in addition to, prior to the zoning hearings with the Plan Commission, but also public participation will be available to the public during the hearing process. So you got the 4 additional meetings that we're going to do prior to the start of the Plan Commission hearings, but then there's public participation opportunities during the public hearings, the Plan Commission hearings, and yet again, another final opportunity during the board meeting when the Plan Commission makes its recommendations to the village board sometime in October.
What is the timeline?
Come on now, Craig. You got to help us a little bit. No, it's okay.
Did you want me to go over
So let's go over the timeline.
Sure.
So we have the additional public engagement that we're doing. Then there's the hearing process that occurs with the Plan Commission. They make their recommendations, Their recommendations come back to the village board for a final decision. Might be a good idea to talk about the plan commission hearing process.
Yeah, Craig Frailer, Director of Development Services. The game plan is to actually send a postcard to each individual homeowner and renter within the community, inviting them to the process to look at what we have available on the website and to introduce the public meetings that we're going to be holding throughout the community on the north side and south side of the community. And as Manager Jackson indicated, that we'll also have a virtual opportunity for the folks. And then once we get through that public engagement process, then we'll tee up the Plan Commission public hearing process, which is another opportunity for folks to come and voice their opinion before the Oak Park Plan Commission, who makes the official recommendation to the village board. And all of that is on record. And then the Plan Commission, we're looking at a potential meeting mid-September. And they will continue that meeting as much as they need to make sure they get all the public comment in that they have. And then at the conclusion of that public hearing, after they've heard all the public testimony and heard from the consultant and staff, they will make a recommendation to the village board on whether they support the application or not, or if they have modifications that they want to make to the application. And then that would be transmitted back to the village board, who will review all that information, all the public comment, and they will make the final decision on whether or not to support the zoning recommendations.
So next week is, I'm sorry, next week, ma'am, it's next week. Maybe you want to be at the mic. Given that the vote is going to be made to go forward, or is that, because you have a timeline which almost says the decision has been made. Yes. So, I'm concerned about what next week is really going to be.
Next week is for the village board to accept. Next week is for the village board to accept the recommendation from the consultant, accept it, not approve it, not adopt it, accept it, and direct staff to go forward with holding the public hearing before the Plan Commission.
If they say no, then what happens?
If they don't accept the recommendations and it's zero, then it's done.
Stops. Process stops.
If they accept it, are they accepting it as a whole? Because it's a very sweeping recommendation.
They could accept it as a whole, or they could put conditions on pieces that they like or they don't like.
At next week's meeting.
At the 28th.
Mr. Baylor? And what about the motion?
Sorry.
Because postcards were sent, isn't that postcards to figure out this?
Pardon me?
You're gonna send out postcard, this is zoning commission, to residents of Oak Park. And that wasn't very effective, to get people's input for this whole thing. So I'm not sure I trust or understand, everybody's sending out some postcards.
Yeah. All right.
Way to get people's input on the zoning. You're gonna set up postcards.
Yeah, he's got it.
Thank you for the comment. All right, we're gonna
That's correct.
Move on, but thank you all. I truly do appreciate that, and thank you, Craig, for schooling us a little bit on. Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry if I was trying to help clarify. It sounds like it backfired a little bit. But where in the process will the feasibility study be completed, and when will we receive that information in the decision-making process?
The feasibility study will be completed in August.
Okay, and we will receive it at a regular board meeting?
We will provide it to the village board whenever it's ready.
Okay, and that becomes part of the evaluation by the Plan Commission as well?
Yes.
Okay, because I think my understanding, please correct me or clarify, that some of the information that we will get from that study will answer some of these more specific questions that we heard tonight and in the last several weeks about the actual impact on different elements of cost, enrollment,
Yes.
parking, all
We're
of
doing
those things.
case studies, yes.
So we want to make sure that we are also communicating what we learn to the community and how that's going to impact the final decision that comes in October.
Yeah, all the documents that have been created so far and will be created will be on the Engage Oak Park website, available to the entire community.
Okay,
Yep.
thanks.
What about the inclusionary housing business? You passed it in 2019, but we've had several generations of discussions, studies, and nothing has moved
In the meantime, villages like Ensign have amended theirs at least 4 times.
We will definitely be addressing more of that dialogue, but we can't actually address this in a back and forth dialogue with the crowd. And we can do this within some of the town halls that will be hosted later on so that we can have further, deeper discussions. But we've also got a whole bunch of other agenda items that we have to get to today.
When is the actual vote? Is there a vote set for this?
Said it a couple of times here. We said on the 28th there will be an acceptance vote of the recommendations. There are still votes that go on. The referendum's right now. We are putting in a vote right now for that. That means that they put recommendations for us. They let us, we get to decide whether or not we like all the recommendations. Some of them want them to take it back or to review those and bring something back to us. So there is multiple steps before that happens, which is, why I think there was some dispute up here on whether a referendum now even made sense because we haven't talked about all of this stuff. But do we have, you guys got postcards, is what I heard. Go ahead.
President Pro Tem Enyia. Also, I just want to acknowledge we do have Craig Fahler, Director of Development Services, and other village administration here that can actually stick around and answer any questions that people may have after this, right?
Thank you. So if you do have questions after this, Director Craig Fahler will be here to answer some more of those questions for you outside of this meeting. Do we have any trustees that have comments?
Motion. I was wondering if I would be able to speak. No. Sorry. I just have a few words to speak. Thank you for all coming. I want to begin by making something very clear. My purpose here tonight is not to argue for or against eliminating single-family zoning. That debate is important, but it is not the debate we are having tonight. The question before us is who should be entrusted with making a decision of this magnitude. What is being proposed is not just a routine zoning amendment or a variance that easily falls under the fiduciary duty of this elected and appointed board. What we are talking about is a foundational zoning decision that will impact how Oak Park will grow and what our neighborhoods, parks, and schools will look like for generations to come. Land use decisions often shape communities for generations. That is why I believe this decision deserves something more than a simple majority vote of this board. Representative government is important. The residents of Oak Park elected each of us to make difficult decisions. I accept that responsibility. I also know that certain decisions are so consequential, so impactful, and so permanent that they deserve direct public consent. This is one of those decisions. It is our fiduciary duty to acknowledge that we should have a limit to our power when it comes to decisions that will shape this village for long after we're gone. None of us on this board can accurately predict what Oak Park will look like in 20, 30, or 50 years from now. None of us can say, nor can any of us say with certainty what the long-term impacts will be on housing, infrastructure, schools, parking, or taxes. What we do know is that the zoning change of this magnitude has the potential to change Oak Park fundamentally. That is precisely why the people who will live with those consequences should have a direct voice in the outcome. A referendum is not an obstacle to progress. A referendum is democracy. If this proposal is truly the right path forward for Oak Park, then its supporters should welcome the opportunity to make that case directly to the voters. And if the voters approve it, the results will carry a level of legitimacy that no majority vote of the board can ever provide. Decades from now, residents may disagree about whether this proposal was the right decision. What they should never be able to say is that they were denied a meaningful voice in making it. Let's be the board that trusts and listens to the people of Oak Park. Let's be the board that recognizes the difference between ordinary policy decisions and foundational ones. And let's be the board that gives our residents the opportunity to decide what kind of community they will want to leave for future generations. I urge my colleagues to place this question before the voters and allow the residents of Oak Park to have the final say. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other trustee comments?
So I second this referendum motion, despite the fact that I disagree with it. But I believe it needs to be heard because that's democracy. I've probably been the primary sponsor of all of this, so if you're looking for somebody to blame, you can look here. But the reason that I've been the primary sponsor of this is because this change accomplishes that everything Oak Park says is about. We are a village that prides itself on 1968, on integrating before practically anyone else, and the legacy of that integration has outlasted many. There are, I don't know, a handful of communities that can say that they are like us in terms of having actual measurable diversity. What we don't have is integrated single-family home neighborhoods. When you go outside and you look on your porch, you look down the street, how many black neighbors do you see? I know how many I see. So when you talk about diversity, I'm not talking about diversity. We are a diverse community. Chicago's a diverse community. You can go in Chicago and you can look at the demographics in Chicago and you can say that's a diverse community. Yet you can walk in certain parts of Chicago and never see a face that might look like yours. Where I grew up, you would not see a face that looked like most of you sitting here in this audience. That's not inclusion. That's not integration. That's diversity. Because then I could walk a mile or so in a different direction and see a lot of people who look like you, but none who look like me. In Oak Park, I thought we were supposed to be better. When I listened to you all call for a referendum to vote on something that is morally reprehensible, it really saddens me. Single-family zoning.
Guys, be quiet, please.
Thanks, sir. Single-family home zoning, exclusionary zoning, dates back to 1917. Buchanan versus Worley. It actually struck down explicit race-based zoning. Well, in 1917, this country was explicitly racist, and so that wouldn't do. 9 years later, Euclid decision validated economic zoning. Economic zoning is proxy-based zoning. What it says is that people who can afford to buy certain types of housing can live in certain areas. Well, we know the history of slavery in this country, don't we? We also know the history of race-based wealth and income inequality, right? So who can afford to pay $600,000, which is the median sales price for a house here in Oak Park right now? They definitely don't typically look like me. They look a lot like you all. What you're arguing for is a system that keeps people like me from living next to people like you. Instead, the system allows people like me to live on Washington, to live on Austin. You can give me a map of Oak Park right now. I can tell you where 90% of the black people live, just by the housing types. The reason the zoning change is important is because housing types dictate race. That was established in 1926, and it has been validated and consistently reinforced for a century ever since. Now, none of you all in here were there. So I'm not saying any of you are racist. I'm not saying any of you created this system. I'm not saying that any of you are to blame for not having destroyed it already. I'm not even saying that you're to blame for not having known about it, but you know about it now. And so what you do next, that one's on you. Yeah, well, here's the thing. Here's the thing with voting. Do you know how many advisory referendums have been conducted in Oak Park over the last, 10, 15 years? Quite a few. Do you know how many have actually been respected by any government in this village? 0. You want a vote that won't be respected by the board. I mean, that... Yeah, that's the truth. You want to send something to referendum.
Call order, please. Let this man speak. I voted for him.
Thank you, sir.
If you can't, you can wait outside, honestly.
You want a referendum, an advisory referendum, in a village that has never respected advisory referendums. If you want change, then you should engage with the system. This is engaging with the system. I will tell you, this is not sprung on you. We've been talking about this at least since 2024, maybe 2023. Every single one of those meetings, I have looked out at this crowd and not seen a single person. I've not seen any of you until recently. We've talked about this for over 2 years. It's been written up in the Wednesday Journal at least 4 or 5 times. There's been an editorial board comment on it in the Wednesday Journal. This is not new. When you say that you just found out about it, you just found out about it because somebody got scared and sent the entire village, except me apparently, a postcard that this was, and you, a postcard that said that it was going to tear the fabric of the village up. Well, I'll tell you what, have you ever walked through Southeast Oak Park? Because that's what this change creates. Yeah, so do I. That's what this change creates. The zoning code actually in the change was modeled after Southeast Oak Park. So when you talk about the character of the village, we took the character of the village and we said, wouldn't it be great if everybody could build it? You don't have to, but wouldn't it be great if you could build that anywhere? I'll tell you what else. There are so many housing units in this village that if they burn down tomorrow, you couldn't rebuild them because they're now illegal. In most parts of this village, the only thing that is legal to build is a single-family home. And so let me tell you what happens with that. Because I live in Southeast Oak Park, and around the corner from me, somebody bought a starter home. And then they tore it down. They left one wall standing. And then they built a McMansion and sold it for $1 million. That's what this system creates right now. When you ask about affordability, the change is affordability. The current system is not affordable. You all are talking about property taxes. Let me tell you how property taxes work. You pay a share of property taxes. When you add more people, then that share gets divided amongst more people. Do you know what happens when you do that? I'm the guy here, I'm the guy voting on the budget. You act like I don't know how this works. Do you want the math?
That's what I'm saying.
Let's finish, guys.
If you're concerned about your property taxes, it's simple division. What has happened in this village for so long is that you've taken a number, the property tax, the budget for every government in this village, and then you divide it by the number of taxable properties in the village. And that's how you get your number. Well, for the last century, increasing that bottom number, the number that you actually divide it by, the number of taxable properties, has been impossible. So every time we increase our levy here, every time we increase our budget number, it gets divided amongst the same number of people. So of course your property taxes go up. That's how math works. If you add more people who carry the burden then more people carry less of the burden. I'm not going to tell you your property tax is going to go down. Come on, I'm not, like, let's be real, right? But it can grow slower. But they won't grow slower if you're constantly dividing them amongst the same amount of people. It's the same thing if you go out to eat. You sit down with 6 people, you order bills $100, you divide $100 by 6 people, that's your number. If you divide $100 by 8 people, all of a sudden everybody's paying a smaller share. That's how property taxes work. If you don't think so, look it up. In any case, that's affordability. There's also the aspect of housing diversity. There are a lot of people who move to this village, they put their kids through school, and then they have this decision to make because now their kids go to college, and college is expensive, and living in Oak Park is expensive. And they want to stay here, they want to stay in their community, but they can't, right? Because what's their choice? They stay in this big house, they used to house 5, 7 people, and it's only 2 of them. Or they move somewhere else that actually has a ground level unit where they can walk in and not have to deal with stairs. And it's a lot cheaper. So they go somewhere else. You know what they leave with? I don't know, anywhere between $100,000 and like $700,000 of your money in their pocket for their kids' education. That's how the system works. If we allow people to age in their community, they can continue to pay for the next generation while being here amongst the people that they've grown up with and grown in love. This system is preventing that. There's a lot of fear about what might happen. I get it. Change is hard. My day job, change is all I do. I'm dealing with people who hate change. I'm not going to tell you you're going to be comfortable with it. I'm hardly comfortable with it too. But change is necessary sometimes. In 1968, change happened. And it happened despite the fact that there were people inside of the village hall at that time who didn't want it to happen. Thousands of signatures were collected for a petition to send it to referendum. And what did that board do? They voted and then they said no. They were sued. They won. And Oak Park became integrated. I'm not claiming that this is 1968, but this is the legacy of 1968. And if this village wants to live up to that legacy, like it says it does, every single time I talk to anyone about Oak Park and its values, then we owe it to ourselves to at least consider that this might be the right move. Because in 1968, those people were scared too. And they made the change anyway. And now we're all sitting here. I wouldn't be sitting here if it wasn't for 1968. Sometimes you have to do things that are about courage, even if you don't know where you're leaping. I can tell you all the numbers. I did all the data. I've thought about this for years. I can tell you exactly how all of the science works, all of the data works across the country in every different way. If you come ask me, I'll answer all your questions. What I can't do is make you comfortable with it, right? That's a choice you have to make. I welcome anybody to have a conversation with me about this. I've heard a lot of different things. I've written them all down as you all were talking. I don't look at everyone while they're speaking because I'm taking notes and I'm cross-referencing my notes. So I've heard a lot of different things. I've heard things about schools. School enrollment is down 10% since COVID. There's a lot of room in our schools. Well, definitely here too. Those are local numbers. When we talk about, again, how adding housing units increases affordability, let me tell you about affordable housing. From the 10 years between 2013 and 2023, Oak Park's affordable housing went up 5 percentage points, from 18% to 23%. During that time, we built 50 affordable units, only 50. Eder, the Illinois Housing Development Agency, keeps track of all affordable housing in the state. They run the same calculation against every municipality. So while we only built 50 affordable units, we appreciated 1,300 because of the number of market rate units we built. Building housing creates affordable housing. Again, that's why I want to do this change. We say we want affordable housing here. That's one of our values. This is how you achieve it. The local data, the Oak Park data proves it. I'm not using Chicago data. This is in Minneapolis. This is Oak Park data. There's a lot of notes here. You guys brought up a lot of issues. Frank, you mentioned that back in the day, they sent people like you to Maywood. They sent people like me to Maywood, too. When we think about this village, do we want to be the village where folks say, I want to live in Oak Park, and they show up here and they go, damn, now I got to go to Maywood. I want to be a community that's inclusive, that's welcoming. Those are the things that we have in our diversity statement. Those are the things that we say that we're about. Look, this is a change. I'm not going to soft pedal it, right? It's a big change. It doesn't have to be a super scary one. There's information. We can have those conversations. We can get you informed. We can make you feel better about it. I want to say you feel great about it. I mean, that's a personal decision, right? But if you actually cut through the fear that was on that postcard that I didn't receive and actually understand how some of these things work versus how people want to scare you with them, I guarantee you can get a lot more comfortable with this change than you are right now. I'll leave it there. The law in Illinois is clear. The village board votes for zoning. That's just how it works. I mean, it's literally illegal for us to give you a binding referendum, and no government in this village has ever respected an advisory one. That's just history. Maybe this one will be the first. I'm not telling you not to try. I'm just giving you the history. I don't support advisory. I do not support an advisory referendum. I seconded the motion because I support democracy and I wanted you all to be heard. Otherwise, this referendum would not be on the agenda and you would not have a place here tonight. I seconded the motion from Trustee Taglia so that he can be heard because I believe in democracy and he is your elected official. And this is what he felt needed to be said at the board table. And so I wanted to give him that opportunity. And I wanted to give you all the opportunity to show up before us and make these comments and have this discussion. That's democracy. But I can't give you what the state won't allow me to give you. Not that I even support it, but even if I did, I couldn't give it to you.
Trustee Straw, do you have any comments to add?
Yeah. I think that the public engagement schedule that is contemplated under the current approach makes a lot of sense because I cannot imagine how this question could be reduced to an advisory referendum in a meaningful way, where if a voter picked up the ballot and read the referendum question, they could render a meaningful vote and understand the complexities of this issue. And that isn't to say that, and I've had this conversation with a few people, and people have suggested that, you know, that's elitist. And it's not a question of whether Oak Park voters can understand the complexities of this issue. I absolutely believe that they can. We have a lot of very smart individuals in Oak Park. We've come to understand this issue at the board table because we've been looking at it and analyzing it for years. We've read hundreds of pages of data and analysis, and most of us have gone and read outside studies on the zoning issue. And I think that the outcome of a referendum campaign necessarily is going to come down to bumper sticker slogans, as opposed to the kind of conversation that would provide meaningful engagement. The engagement plan that I heard discussed earlier tonight and that we've previously talked about having occur between the July 28th vote accepting the report and any plan commission hearings and any final consideration of plan commission recommendations would provide an opportunity for meaningful conversation, both questions and answers with data and analysis and a meaningful discussion of what the proposal actually looks like. And I think that's important because I've had a number of conversations with folks where they wrote in saying, we need a referendum because I got this postcard and you're looking at building massive apartment buildings on every block in Oak Park. And I was able to provide them with, here is what the Opticos recommendations actually show. And, this is zoning that brings our zoning in line with what the built environment in Oak Park looks like. And let's talk about what's on your block. Some of these folks lived on blocks that have 2 flats and 3 flats. And the proposal simply aligns zoning with what their block looks like. And they said, oh, I absolutely support that. And maybe a referendum doesn't make sense because I was scared into telling you shouldn't be doing this. And so I think that engagement is important. It's important that we actually communicate what these recommendations are, that we communicate it directly to voters, and we have an opportunity to hear feedback from them in conversations, in open hearings. I don't think that an advisory referendum provides the same level of meaningful engagement as a real open hearing town hall forum strategy does provide for. And that's why I am not in support of this advisory referendum. I'll just add, if anyone's yelling things out in the room, I'm unable to hear them because it's not a...
All of the calls have been for you, Brian. They've been... Oh, go ahead.
So one other quick thing, I'm sorry, it's just a factual note I want to put on the record. There was a zoning change, comprehensive zoning change that was done in this village in 2017. Trustee Taglia was on the board when that happened. There was no referendum. He voted for it. This isn't unprecedented. This is what we do here. Zoning has always been voted for by the village board without a referendum. That is the mechanism.
Doesn't the magnitude of this reaction tell you that it's something different?
That was a comprehensive zoning change as well. The entirety of Madison Avenue, or Madison Street rather, was rezoned. It's the reason why Peace exists. It's the reason why American House exists. It's the reason why all the multifamily development on Madison exists. And there were a lot of people, once those developments were built, who were upset about it. And the things that were built on Madison Street were all multifamily, not single family. It was rezoned to make that possible. This was not a simple rezone. It was comprehensive. There was no referendum. The board passed it. It was not, that was an example. The entire zoning code was rewritten in 2017. The entire thing. I wasn't on the board in 2017.
Thank you.
I'll just add, I'll be brief. Just to chime in, again, I appreciate everyone coming in tonight, sharing all of your opinions and feedback. I'm also not in favor of a referendum, but I am in favor of doing the work that's necessary to educate this community before we make any final decisions. It's clear there's a lot of misinformation that's floating around the village. I think someone beat us to the punch about sending out a postcard, and that postcard had not very helpful information in it that I think activated and scared a lot of people. And I will say that we're behind the ball now. We have not educated folks enough about what these changes are, what they will mean, and so that needs to happen. So before any final vote is made on zoning, I want to see that happen. It's clear that it's needed because there's just, obviously because of the turnout tonight and the things I heard tonight. Again, fears that I can understand, but also rooted in things that are just not accurate. So there's a lot of air that needs to get cleared up before I would feel comfortable making a final vote on this. So that, I believe, is the plan, but I just want to underscore that needs to happen before I'm going to vote for any zoning changes. And I also want to, I think, Henry, you mentioned it during your public comment, but I also believe that the inclusionary housing ordinance does need to be revamped and expanded, and I want that to be done before we vote on zoning. I think I'm going to tie my vote to the inclusionary housing ordinance changes as well. I want to see that done, and I think we have enough time. If we're talking about a final vote in October, I think we have enough time to get that done, but that's where I'm standing on all of this because those two things really need to work together in order to achieve the affordability goals that we have stated that we have. So I'll leave it there.
Thank you so much for that, Derek. I'm much in line with what Derek has brought up. If you ever come to any of my, what do we call this, forums that we had when we were being elected, this was a question that came up. We talked about this. We talked about this to great lengths about making Oak Park more affordable, giving more opportunity for those that are looking for housing. I grew up in Oak Park. My parents still live in Oak Park on the 1000 block of Lombard. I had the opportunity and the great chance of living on one block that randomly had apartments on Carpenter and Jackson. We had 2 apartment buildings on that block. No neighbors, made us feel unwelcome. They made us feel like we were part of the community, invited us to everything just like everybody else, and treated us very neighborly, and we loved it. We loved it so much that we wanted to have our own house and give somebody else the opportunity to move into that apartment that was actually affordable. We moved to Richland, and we found a house that was $256,000. It's crazy, right? In 2016, makes no sense. Now that house is now doubled in price. It's, again, crazy because by the time it's sold, it'll probably be well over $750,000, knowing how quickly this has happened. For this value to go up. So if you do not do something about this now, these prices are going to continue to become astronomical. You will not be able to even pass this on to your own kids because you won't be able to afford these property taxes plus what it costs to maintain these homes. Because most of these homes are well over 100 years old. So there's a lot of things that go along with this that we have to address and conversations that had to be had. I think a lot of what our neighbors here are forgetting is that you have a board that actually wants to listen to you, that wants to hear these opinions, that wants to take it to these different forums so that we can have these conversations. If you don't believe that, then you really don't know who any of us are. We are definitely people who engage our community in a positive way and want to hear your feedback and see how do we best find a middle ground or a way that works for this community to keep growing. Because like many of our neighbors have said, the diversity is going down in Oak Park. You're seeing less and less people that look like me and look like others that are in this community because we're being priced out. It is no longer affordable in the houses that are here. We don't have some stash of money from great-great-grandparents who lived in Oak Park or lived around here who have generational wealth. That is not what person like me whose parents were immigrants to America and I was born in Chicago and moved here. That was not what was in the cards for us. So in order for us to find affordability It's through policy. It's through these opportunities. It is not, hey, we're flipping the table over and everything is changing tomorrow. It is, hey, we're discussing these things, and we want you to be a part of that conversation. And this is how that works. It's very typical, but now it seems like we don't want to have these conversations and take the time necessary to build this coalition around what affordable housing looks like and what we want to see in Oak Park. We didn't say that you have to take, we're going to take the most drastic housing options and turn your block upside down and you'll never remember what it looked like. We're saying we're trying to find ways that accommodate what Oak Park's beauty and aesthetic is and what could that possibly look like. Because the two apartments on the block that I lived on didn't throw anything off. I didn't see anybody drive by and say, this block is so ugly, look at those two apartment buildings. That's not how it works. It just made it very affordable, and it made my daughter, myself, my wife, and my son able to have something that was affordable and them to go and attend schools here in Oak Park. 3 of the 6 units that were in that building have bought homes here in Oak Park. So like you said, who was it that you had a starter and a way to get from one place to another for yourself? This is what we are trying to open up, an opportunity and an avenue for those to get into the door. If we close our doors now, this is all we get, us and the lack of diversity that we are having. We want to continue to build that, not just with how we look, but economic diversity too. So this is how we do that. It is not, hey, we close our doors and we don't like what this looks like and we don't want to see any changes to this. I was here 35 years ago, so I do know what Oak Park used to look like then. I don't know what it looked like 35 years before that because people like me weren't allowed to live here. So we are going to have to work on this and figure out ways to talk to each other. If that is not within the cards, wait outside. But we want to talk to you. We want to engage with you all. You're our neighbors. You are not, some strangers that live far away. But I'll tell you about getting postcards because when I ran for election, there was postcards that went all throughout Oak Park that said I was here to take away police from Oak Park and defund anything that was great here. And then we had emails that went along and said, these people do not want to see democracy in Oak Park. They will ruin what democracy is in Oak Park. And those were the things that were passed out throughout Oak Park. And I did not see anyone in an uproar about these postcards. I just saw people who were like, yep, these are the people who are trying to take our democracy away. So don't jump to see these postcards and think that this was done for your benefit. These are people who want to continue to create dissension among us and not to see Oak Park actually be the diverse community that you all moved here for.
I didn't say I don't care what you think. I said this is the way to engage with the system. I want to engage with you in town halls in the engagement that Manager Jackson laid out. I said that I don't believe that an advisory referendum is the way to go, and I don't support it. There's a difference.
After this, you can talk to Craig after this, and we'll set up a dialogue to have with you, but we can't keep going back and forth. We're already almost at 10 o'clock. Thank you. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. We can talk after this. No one said that you lack courage. I didn't say that. I didn't say that. We'll talk about this after, but thank you. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. Thank you. We'll talk to it right after. We'll talk after this, but we can't keep going back and forth or we won't move forward.
Okay. I don't want to get too much into the substance of ultimately the work, although I will repeat a couple of things that I've said because I think it's relevant regarding the process. There were a lot of really good, important questions brought up tonight, previous meetings, public comments, as well as an email, and they all deserve thoughtful, thorough answers. And there also is a lot of misalignment and misunderstanding and misinformation and lies. So it is really hard, as Trustee Eder was saying, we are kind of playing catch up. And I've been very critical of elements of the process up to this point because I thought public education was going to look a lot different than it turned out. And so I take accountability as a representative here at this board for approving it's already really late. An effort that didn't deliver. I also think that it's important that we establish that this is a really important responsibility that I take very, very seriously, that housing policy is a charge of the Village of Oak Park and the Village Board to guide those decisions. One of our board goals is affordability, affordable housing. I think it was Trustee Wesley that mentioned that this doesn't just happen overnight. It's not being rushed. So while I appreciate and accept a lot of the criticism on the process up to this point, I will push back on the idea that it's been rushed. It has not been rushed. Not only did it start in 2023 with the Metropolitan Mayor's Caucus's evaluation and the report that we accepted or the previous board before me accepted in 24, that work hadn't happened since 2012. So we're already like late to be doing this kind of comprehensive strategic planning for housing. This is really important work that we have to do, like regardless of what happens with the specific recommendations that Opticos presents, regardless of what happens with a referendum, like we have to make decisions around housing policy. It's really a central charge of our work at this board. And so while I don't believe that the recommendations specifically that were released last week from the consulting firm Opticos are too complicated for anybody in this room or any in this village to understand, I think it's too complicated to meaningfully get feedback through a yes or no referendum vote. Because if it comes back overwhelmingly, 100% of voters say no, well, what are you saying no to? We don't know, right? Like there are too many pieces to it, where I would much rather hear tonight, I have my notes, I thought some of the questions I can follow up are important to be answered, and then maybe you'll change your mind and maybe you won't, right? But an advisory referendum that's a yes or no, no to what, and then what do we do with that information? That doesn't even guide, because we have to make changes, we have to make policy. A no doesn't inform me, then what? Then what do we do with that? I didn't actually hear, it was an interruption, so I didn't actually hear what was said. So I would invite anybody who the questions around affordability I think are really, really important. I've said many times that just by eliminating single-family zoning alone will not guarantee meaningful improvements in affordable housing stock, and that is why I also am committed to doing this with any zoning changes alongside an inclusionary housing ordinance, because there's a lot of pieces, as Manager Jackson mentioned, that were recommended through long study of our housing needs, and so. Any good faith questions and conversations that folks want to engage with, I'm really happy to have more conversations outside of that. And again, maybe we'll agree and maybe we won't, but I think sharing honest information with each other is the important part that I'm very open to engage with.
Clerk Waters, I think we're ready for the roll. Yeah, no, hold on one second.
I just want to quickly, in a minute or so, address a couple of things. What I hear talked about in the village as, and people are saying there's a lack of understanding. We don't understand. People don't understand. That's caused by, the root cause of that is a lack of information. That's what the problem is. There isn't the information. 5 days ago, and this is in the Opticos recommendations were received, were sent out publicly 5 days ago. At the time this gets referred to the Plan Commission, and it's going to be a referral next week, it is going to be 12 days. So that means for people to really engage and get back to residents, to their elected officials, it's very difficult. It's very difficult. I know there will be additional opportunities, and there will be, and there are going to be, but I would argue that what largely gets referred to the plan commission will probably be what comes back to the board. I would be surprised if there were big changes that occur as a result of, and maybe I'm wrong, and I hope I am, but I would be surprised if there's going to be substantial changes made. The whole point of the idea of a referendum was to have a debate and public education and knowledge. And that's important because I could see, I've never had an issue where I've received 250 emails. And I've had a lot of issues over the years, and I can name them all, everything going back to 2017. There was nothing to this magnitude. And so that tells you, that informs you that there's something amiss. And I understand there was a campaign to get people to respond, but they don't respond just because. People don't take the time to do that. Well, I don't know. That's been my experience. So I would just say that the point of it was, the intention was a good one, to have voter education, debate, discussion, and understanding of this important topic better than it is today. And hopefully it will be with the process we have moving forward. Hopefully it will be. And I think time will tell. So I will turn it over back to you, and you want to take a call?
Yep, thank you for that. And like we said, when the other meetings will be, let's take the roll.
Trustee Taglia?
Yes.
Trustee Wesley?
No.
Trustee Eder? No. Trustee Leving-Jacobson?
No.
Trustee Straw?
No.
And President Pro Tem Enyia?
No. There we have it. We'll go to the next item on the agenda. Or actually, do you want to take a brief 5-minute recess?
Yes.
All right, we'll take a quick recess.
Past 10.
So moved.
Second.
Do we need to take a vote? All right. Are we good? All right. Can we get an all in favor?
Aye.
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 All right. So we will be moving along with the agenda. The next.
We have public comments still,
Non-agenda
right?
public comment.
Non-agenda.
Oh yeah. Do we have any non-agenda public comment?
Yes,
Come
we
on
do.
up.
This is going to seem anticlimactic after that free-for-all, but the agenda item was the referendum, and this is not about the referendum. So it's Frank Stickhire again, and I'm here to talk about the scheduling of the July 28th vote and the rationale for that. Basically vote in July and then do the community feedback that's going to tell us what the community wants starting in September. And one of the rationales that was offered by one of the trustees was, and I quote, "We already did this," the outreach. So I want to examine what that outreach consisted of by comparing what Optico's promised and what it delivered. So in their proposal, they said 3 things. Community engagement efforts often fall short because many stakeholders don't know that the process is happening. Eyes glaze over when they see the word zoning. Secondly, gone are the days of relying only on evening community events over the dinner hour and hearing from the same 30 people. And thirdly, altogether will lead directly supporting the implementation of the strategic vision for housing and advancing mission middle housing. So that was what they pledged. Let's compare with the results. The altogether notification of the March public meetings went out via social media post and e-newsletter blast, whatever that is, because it didn't reach me. went out by a document dated February 25th, 3 business days prior and a weekend prior to the first meeting, and the second meeting 2 days after. Predictable result was that they had 35 participants at the first meeting of community feedback and 52 at another. I wasn't there because I didn't know about it, but I did a FOIA to find out what it was all about, and I've read it all. Those meetings were essentially about explanation and promotion, exactly as it was proposed by Optigos, and that exactly what Altogether would do, and exactly as the trustee described it when he talked about this, when he said we already did it. He said it was about what is MMH, why we need it, how we need it to create it. But there was nothing about what are the potential pitfalls of it, what about the possible harmful effects, what about the fact or possibility that it might backfire and make things worse, and so on and so forth. That's the kind of feedback that to me would have been hopefully leading to the ultimate question, which could have been put to a referendum, is, all right, we've heard all this. What do you think? Do you think it's going to work? Do you want it? Up, down, yes, no, thumbs up, thumbs not. We didn't get that. The comments that were reported back from the results of that meeting, there are pages of them, but the one on page 8 really says it all. It was a comment that said, decision already made. We're only asked for input on what flavor. So to my mind, this is not asking the community feedback on whether they really want this, having heard the arguments in its favor. I think the effort was paltry, and it gives the impression that it was done just to check the box and to go through the motions. And I certainly hope they do better next time. And we ought to try to make sure they do so that we get honest feedback on the important question of should you do this? The other remark by a trustee, or by the president actually, was we need the vote now so that the voters need something to react to, so vote now on the 28th. I don't see why it can't be just the Opticos proposal. We did feedback effort once without a vote. It was on the status of the outreach that was done. This could serve as the proposal for, the proposal could be the basis for the outreach in September and the feedback, and you don't need to vote now. The real risk is that it looks to the public like this is a rush to push through something and to act before knowing what the Oak Park public really wants or really thinks, almost looking as if the board doesn't want to know by voting first. And by the way, I heard Mr. Jackson the other couple of meetings ago say something totally different than what I've been hearing here tonight. He said that this is the vote. From this point, it's going to be the locomotive gets set in motion to do all the things that need to be done. And so you can talk about all the possibility of meetings and feedback, but as Mr. Taglia said then and said again today, these things rarely change. So I think you risk the appearance of having presented the village with a fait accompli. It's done. There's nothing you can do about it. I mean, who's even going to take seriously, at least I wonder, September feedback opportunities when you've already voted in a way that sets the locomotive running. If I were there, it's the kind of egg that I would not want on my face. And I think creating that impression is a grave danger to the relationship between the community and the board. So I don't think you should take this vote. You're not ready for it. And you won't be on July 28th. Thank you.
Annalise?
my name is Annalise Cothran. I'm a resident of Oak Park. In contrast to the many white people who came here to share their fears about what might happen in their backyard, I want to speak on something that actually did happen in our backyard. I'm here today to urge the board to take meaningful action in the death of Christian Wallace, a Black man who was killed by Oak Park police on May 31st. A community sign-on letter with nearly 300 signatures was presented to the board last week that included a list of demands. These demands were crafted intentionally to fall within the board's purview and ensure accountability and transparency. In brief, these demands included a fully independent civilian-led investigation, removing the officer from duty until the investigation is complete, swift action if violations of policy, law, or rights are found, no funding for the police station until we can ensure taxpayer dollars won't be going toward a lawsuit, a review of the responsibilities and actions of the village manager in the situation, passing a non-safety traffic stop ordinance, and adopting a critical communications protocol. I want to double tap on the last two demands. Christian Wallace left behind 4 children, 2 parents, and countless friends and community members. Oak Park police did not inform his family that the footage of him being shot 4 times in the back and dying on the side of the road would be released to the public. I feel deeply ashamed that my village caused this unbearable trauma to Christian's family. The village board has the responsibility to ensure communication gaps like this do not happen again. I also want to emphasize that we can join the 54 jurisdictions and counting, it sounds like we are, that have addressed racially biased police interactions by ending non-safety related traffic stops. Oak Park police stop Black drivers at 4 times the rate of white drivers and nearly 5 times the rate of Hispanic drivers, and I can't help but think that if we had passed this ordinance sooner, Christian may be alive today. I want to end my comment by sharing a line from Christian's obituary. Christian's physical presence may no longer walk among us, but his light remains. It lives through his children, through his art, through his music, through every story told about him, and through the love of those who will forever speak his name. Tonight, we continue to speak Christian's name, and we will continue to do so until the board responds meaningfully to this action. Thank you.
Sarah S. Jim S.
Good evening. My name is Jim Schwartz, an Oak Park resident for the past 20 years. I'm one of the co-chairs of the Alliance for Black Youth. The Alliance for Black Youth exists to advance equitable outcomes for Black youth by centering their voice, experience, and success. By most measures, our society continues to marginalize Black men, both nationally and locally. In healthcare, the criminal legal system, housing, jobs, and education, the evidence demonstrates that we ignore the needs of Black men, and this starts when those Black men are boys. The Alliance works to advance the interests of those Black boys and young men, and unfortunately the threat to them from armed agents of our government is very real. That risk only increases as those Black boys and young men grow into adults. Our Black youth are watching how this community responds. They are learning whether their voices matter, whether their lives are valued, and whether the adults entrusted with leadership will act with courage or simply wait for the next tragedy. We all saw evidence of this threat to them recently here in Oak Park as a police officer shot and killed Christian Wallace during a traffic stop. And we've all seen this evidence throughout our country over the last 10 years and throughout our national history. Members of this community have already called for an investigation into the incident, the elimination of non-safety traffic stops, and other measures which we in the Alliance support. Our organization's particular lens is on how this incident in particular and community circumstances in general affect our Black youth. They deserve better from us in all ways. Our organization has been pushing recently for our high school to provide better and more extensive supports for students. We need more opportunities for youth employment and places to hang out. And we need to ensure that we do everything to make our youth physically safe, especially around the adults who are charged with keeping them so. True public safety is not measured only by emergency response. It's measured by whether young people have trusted adults, meaningful opportunities, places where they belong, and confidence that the institutions serving them will protect them rather than marginalize them. Black people are stopped disproportionately by police in this community, and Black young men even more so. We need to make major shifts in this community, both in our narrative about Black young men and also in our supports for them. We ask that you take the community demands seriously. We also ask that Black youth and organizations that work alongside them have a meaningful seat at the table as solutions are developed. Decisions about the future of our community should not be made without those most impacted. This moment will define more than a response to one incident. It will define what kind of community Oak Park chooses to be. We have an opportunity to demonstrate that Black youth are not only heard, but valued, protected, and empowered to thrive. The Alliance for Black Youth stands ready to partner with the village to help make that vision a reality. Thank you.
Zarin B.
Thank you. I'm a resident of Oak Park for I'm just realizing about over 25 years at this point. I want to address police accountability, systems, and transparency following the death of Christian Wallace. What I'm asking for is a clear layperson's explanation of systems that led to this traffic stop resulting in a death. How are Oak Park cops trained? How is de-escalation training factored into it? And what does that look like? What are the steps that led to this event? How is this investigation handled? Will anything change? And how will you inform the public? A human was killed after being pulled over for not signaling soon enough. I cannot get over that. In the over 25 years I've lived here, I have never been pulled over for not signaling, and it has most certainly happened. I'm not bragging about not signaling or not signaling in time, but it's really horrific and pathetic. I thought it was just ICE that did that. We can't advertise and brag that we're diverse or value diversity in Oak Park and then end up with this kind of incident repeatedly, seemingly, according to the statistics we heard earlier tonight as well. No mother, child, sister, brother, or friend should have to hear about the death of their loved one for, quote, not signaling soon enough. I'm also really upset and disappointed at how the board and the village has handled the communication and the transparency surrounding the facts of what happened. We can clearly do a lot better. We have to do a lot better, and I hope we're going to do that. And I look forward to the information shared as soon as possible. Thank you.
I think that is our final public comment.
All right, if there's no more public comment, we'll go to the regular agenda. Item J, a resolution approving certain capital improvements. Wait, do we have to approve?
Yeah, so
can we
let's
get a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Yes, hang on.
Already in the village
President
manager
Pro Tem.
report. Yeah.
Enyia, so we just, so we're gonna, there's no proclamations, no village manager report, boards and committees, we don't have anything there, citizen vacancies, and no appointments. I think we can go right to the consent agenda.
All right.
Do we still need to approve the minutes
We
did.
from July 14th?
We did approve the minutes.
Oh, sorry.
Yep.
All right. Can I get a motion to accept the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Oh wait, roll call. Sorry, roll call.
There's a roll call on this one.
Trustee Living Jacobson?
Yes.
Trustee Eder?
Yes.
Trustee Straw?
Yes.
Trustee Taglia?
Yes.
Trustee Wesley?
Yes.
President Pro Tem Enyia?
Yes. Now moving on to regular agenda. Item J, resolution approving certain capital improvements in and for the village and expressing official intent regarding certain capital expenditures related to such capital improvements to be reimbursed from proceeds of one or more obligations to be issued by the Village of Oak Park, Cook County, Illinois. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Village Manager
Thank
Jackson.
you, President Pro Tem Enyia and trustee members. So we're going to provide an overview of both items J and K. And of course, you'll take action on them separately, but we'll do one presentation tonight. CFO Kevin Boyso is going to take care of that.
Thank you, Manager Jackson, and thank you, Board. This item, we're going to try to speed through the presentation. I know it's been a long meeting, so thank you to the team that's here that behind has put a lot of work behind this presentation. We have had 2 discussions at the Finance Committee on June 18th and also at a July 2nd meeting. So with us here today, we have Tom Reedy and Ali Hughes with Stifel. We also have Rafaelita McKenzie and Andrew Kim with our financial advisors, Spear Financial. And then we also have Larry White with Chapman, who is our bond counsel. So they worked, they put a lot of work into putting this item together. This is at the request of the board to look at a holistic approach in terms of how we're financing some of the board priority projects. And this kind of sets the framework. So I want to be clear and transparent about that it doesn't lock in the board to issue debt, at least with the reimbursement resolution. The ordinance about the work that's being done at Oak Park Avenue streetscape, that is an authorization to issue debt for 2026. And then, of course, that kind of sets a framework for 2027, 2028, and kind of how we're aligning the next few capital projects over the next 5 years. So again, I'll pass it over to Tom, and then he'll go through we're going to try to go through the presentation real quick. But again, lots of materials that are available on our website, the June 18th and July 2nd Finance Committee meeting, which are posted on our website.
Thank you, CFO Boyso, and good evening, Board, and thank you all for having us here this evening. As Kevin mentioned, I'm Tom Reedy with Stifel. We are a municipal bond underwriting firm here with the team from Spear Financial, who is the Village's municipal advisor, and then also represented is the Village's bond counsel, Chapman and Cutler as well. So moving just quickly through this presentation. I did put printed versions. It is rather thick, rest assured. About 2/3 of this is for informational purposes only, to give those members of the board who aren't or haven't been present at the Finance Committee meetings some of the context that was discussed at those meetings. So we'll try and move through about 1/3 of this book in fairly short order. So just an overview of what we're here talking about this evening. The goal here was to develop a comprehensive multi-year plan for addressing several of the major priority capital items that the board has given the CFO's office direction to pursue over the next 5 years. That includes the Oak Park Avenue streetscape plan, which is under construction currently, the police station, the Dr. Percy Julian Chicago Avenue streetscape, a remodeling of Village Hall, which we were in this evening, the bike plan, and Vision Zero. Main goal in developing this, or one of the main goals in developing this financing plan, was to make sure that we were taking all of the different credit characteristics into consideration and not putting the Village's credit rating, which is very strong at a AA, at risk, and then also to preserve financial flexibility going forward. Just briefly, we did present 2 different financing cases, what we called a base case and an alternative case at the Finance Committee, and the structure we will be presenting here this evening is the base case, what we discussed at those 2 meetings. And so what I'll just move to the next slide here to kind of tell you how we got to where we are. At June 18th at the Finance Committee meeting was the initial presentation of a 5-year plan of financing. It did consider financing approximately $178 million worth of projects, including $75 million for a police station, $30 million for the bike plan, and $16.5 million for the Vision Zero plan. We did receive some direction and feedback from the Finance Committee as well as some public comment. Some of the primary feedback items were that we recognized the bike plan was to be considered over a 30-year time horizon, not in the initial 5 years of which this financing plan is intended to address. Similarly, the Vision Zero was a 10-year plan, and we had condensed it into 5 years. So we did make some adjustments as well to the amounts that were being considered. The initial plan for the police station at the June 18th meeting considered $75 million in funding for the police station. That number has been refined. So we came back to the July 2nd meeting. As you can see here, we presented an updated plan which did consider $128 million worth of total projects financed over the next 5 years. We did receive further feedback, very robust discussion. The plan that was advanced forward, as I mentioned earlier this evening, was the base case scenario. So here tonight, we do have 2 items on the agenda. Item J being a reimbursement resolution, and then item K being the bond ordinance for the 2026A financing, excuse me. So before we get into the actual financing scenario, this is just a current snapshot of where the village currently stands with its outstanding debt. Here at the bottom of the page, you can see in the dark blue bars, that is the existing debt service that is currently paid from the village's property tax levy. There in the dark green bars are the payments towards the village's unfunded pension liabilities. And then there in the lighter blue at the top of the page are the payments which are made on general obligation debt, which is abated and paid from other sources. Excuse me, I'm having a little grab. Excuse me. So to summarize the financing plan that was advanced by the Finance Committee, first we have a framework of 3 series of upcoming financings. The first, of course, being the Series 2026A bond issue, which is related to the Oak Park Avenue streetscape project. As you can see here, I'll focus your attention to kind of the bottom of this page here, where we do show a breakout of what is intended to be paid from this project from the GO bond levy, and then also what is being broken out and shown as water and sewer infrastructure improvements. And then lastly, which of this, there's about $1,490,000, which is related to the bike plan, the Vision Zero plan, excuse me. Series 26, importantly, was the same in both scenarios that we did review. That was a 20-year term. Excuse me. And then Series 2027 and Series 2028 start to get into the police station and then the fire station, or not the fire station, police station, the Percy Julian Chicago Avenue streetscape, and then a village hall remodel in 2028. So if you look on the following page, what we tried to do here with this scenario and structuring debt service as a general framework was to keep debt service as level as possible over the next 30 years. So the Series 2026 issuance is structured over a 20-year time period, and then the Series 2028 and 2027 issues are longer-term assets, so they're financing building projects or proposed building projects. So we're proposing structuring those over a much longer time frame there. Sorry,
if you
yeah,
don't mind.
go ahead.
Good evening, this is Rafaelita McKenzie. So what's important to note with this graph is that the darker shade blue shows that the village's existing debt falls off in 2040. And so the pink shaded area shows the 2026 A bonds, which is the streetscape bonds, which we already have a reimbursement resolution in place for that, but that's the bond issue that we're hoping or looking to get authorized tonight. And that bond issue is built into this schedule for 20-year period. The blue shaded area, which is a lighter blue, now shows the series 2027 bonds. And as you can see, what's happening here is we're trying, as Tom mentioned, we're trying to create a more level debt service payment for the village. And so you'll see those latter parts of the graph fills up, right? And then the 2028 bond issue, you'll see where you have that, if you look at that very last bar, you show where majority of that debt is there. Again, as Tom mentioned, this is a scenario that, of the two scenarios that we presented to the Finance Committee, was the chosen scenario as one that would not only allow for a level debt service for the village, but would also allow for future debt issuance for other capital projects as they arise.
Thank you, Rafaelita. So ultimately, the policy decisions we discussed at the beginning were that that may have attracted some members of the Finance Committee to this plan was that we did provide the greatest amount of taxpayer predictability with this plan. As you can see, the current maximum debt service for this plan does max out at right around $11.4 million. That does happen in year 2032. That currently corresponds, as you can see in the dark blue bars at the bottom of the chart, with the maximum annual debt service. And then as existing debt service falls in 2033, you'll see that debt service on the new debt will fall as well. From a tax impact perspective, we did discuss this several different ways. One thing I want to point out is that we didn't just pick these home values at random. Based on the newest mailed reassessment data from the Cook County Assessor's Office, a $450,000 home is expected to be, based on those 2026 assessments, the median home value in the Village of Oak Park. So we took the 25th percentile, which is this $237,000 number, $450,000, and then 643 is the 75th percentile. So it's really the middle chunk of housing within the Village of Oak Park. Just focusing here on the $450,000 homeowner, you could see in the current with existing debt service in 2026, a $450,000 homeowner will pay about $206 towards the village's, specifically the village's debt service in 2026. And that's expected to rise to about $226 next year, just based on existing debt service. And then it maxes out at $232 in the year 2032. With this plan or this framework, based on our current analysis and the different staging of projects and potential bond issuances down the line, we would expect that would max out in tax years 2031 and 2032 at about $480. So it is a significant increase from current levels, but at the same time, we think overall an affordable approach. And after that, debt service levels would fall, and therefore tax impact would fall down to about $393 annually.
I do want to add that these debt service schedules that have been prepared, we also build in what's called the redemption or call feature. So what that does is allows the village to, or SPEAR, to reassess those debt service over time and to refund them, similar to what we did earlier this year with the 2026 bonds, where we refunded some existing debt service and, and replaced them with lower interest rates. And so it's important to note that while, just to keep in mind that this is very fluid, and this, again, is just to give you, give everyone a picture or an idea of what the debt will look like given this 30-year structure and given the village's current equalized assessed valuation.
Thanks, Rafaelita. On this next page, page 7 here, we just wanted to give a little bit of context to the additional debt that the village is considering here, to its existing pension liabilities and its outstanding general obligation bonds as it is. We like to look at this holistically, and we consider both the debt and the pension, unfunded pension liabilities to be the liabilities in total of the village. And obviously this is an issue that many communities across Illinois are grappling with, but it just puts in perspective that the amount that are going in total to the village's liabilities will be dropping significantly come that 2040, 2041 timeframe when those liabilities are expected to be paid down under statute. And then lastly, we did want to make sure to at least analyze the ability of the village in the future to come back with to finance future needs. So we thought that this was an additional or an important piece of additional analysis to include here, is that if the village did grow its debt service levy by 3% annually, starting in 2028, which is the first year of big jump in its debt service, and to be clear, that would be the village instituting some restraint in its borrowing. There is no necessarily there's no limitation as a home rule unit on the amount that the village either can levy or in the amount of debt that the village can borrow. But if it were to impose a 3% growth, we do estimate that the present value of that additional debt service that could be layered on in the future is about $123 million based on our current analysis. So again, just to give the board an idea of what future capacity may be available should need arise. And with that, I think Rafaelita is going to talk about the potential, and Andrew are going to talk about potential rating implications.
Sure. Thank you, Tom. So this slide here is just to answer the question, well, given the village's capital plan and the bond financings that are going to be needed to achieve that capital plan, how does that impact your credit rating? Well, first of all, you are at a AA credit rating from S&P, which is a very, very high credit rating. The highest is AAA, then there's AA+, and then there's AA, right? And so one of the assumptions that we made in providing this analysis is that every other credit factor would remain constant, and the only factor that's going to change is the implementation of this additional borrowing plan of roughly $125 million over the next several years. And you can see with the chart that we have here towards the bottom that the debt score, the debt and liability score right now, before issuing that debt, is a 4.5. Now, the scoring system is such that the lower the score, the better the score. So you want to be closer to, you want to be 1, and 5 is going to be towards the high end, right? And so 4.5 is towards that higher 5 end score. Once we issue the debt, we've determined that the debt score does not change notably. It's still going to be about 4.5. Now, the debt metrics that S&P looks at will undoubtedly change, right? But there's a range that this 4.5 score would qualify, right? So right now, you're on the lower end of those of that range of debt metrics, and if you add $125 million of debt over the next several years, you'll be at the higher end of that range, but you're still within that 4.5, that range that qualifies for a 4.5 score. So because of that, the impact to the credit rating will actually not be significant unless other factors change. Part of the reason for that is that the current score, which S&P reviewed the village's credit profile earlier this year for the refunding that was mentioned, and they took into account that the village would be issuing additional debt, right? They didn't have a specific number because this plan hadn't been fleshed out at the time, but they did keep in mind that additional debt would be issued, and they assumed a sizable debt amount. And so that's why, even though we will be implementing a capital plan that includes $125 million of new debt, the debt and liability score does not change dramatically. Furthermore, what's really driving that 4.5 score for the debt and liability section is actually not the bonded debt that the village has incurred or plans to issue. It's the pension liability, right? That's what's really driving that score. And if you take that score out and you look at the other factors that S&P looks at, the management, the economy, financial performance, reserve and liquidity, I mean, those are very, very high scores. I feel comfortable saying that if the debt and liability section reflected those scores, you would probably be in the AAA rating. I mean, I'm almost certain you'd be in the AAA rating. But because the debt score is as high as it is, that's driven the credit rating down from a AAA to a AA, which, for the record, is still a very strong rating. And one of the other questions that I was thinking about is even though we don't necessarily, the scorecard that we use to analyze the village's credit profile doesn't show that the credit rating will move. But if for some reason the credit rating does move from a AA down to a AA minus, a one-notch downgrade, what does that mean in terms of dollars to the village in its proposed plan of finance? So typically, between a AA and a AA minus, which is the next downgrade, there's about a 10 to 15 basis point increase in interest rates for the life of the bonds. So what does that mean? For about a $10 million bond issue, it would be about $10,000 to $15,000 of additional interest that you would be paying every year for the life of the bonds. For a 20-year financing, the average life would probably be around 15 years, let's say. So if it's $10,000 per year for 15 years, you're talking about $150,000 of additional interest that you would be paying for the downgrade. And if you multiply that times another 10, because we're planning a $100 million capital plan, not a $10 million capital plan, you're talking about a $1.5 million penalty that you would be paying in additional interest caused by the downgrade from a AA to a AA minus. Having said that, we don't think at this point that you would be receiving a downgrade. But if the pension liability continues to soar, if additional debt beyond what's proposed in the capital plan is incurred, then you might be looking at a downgrade to a AA minus.
I do want to mention that the information that's presented here only reflects the data, right? Your current financial statements and basically the debt information. So we've incorporated those quantitative data information. And what happens is when we meet with the rating agency, they also look at other factors such as the qualitative data, which is factored into your rating that's not shown here. And so what are some of those information? That's looking at, for example, what's happening around the village in terms of developments, revenue raising abilities. What does your sales tax? Is Amazon coming in town? What other retailers are coming here and how they impact the village? And so those are things that your finance department will address at that time. And again, this information only shows the number value, the things that are available now, the debt service, the financial information, and things that we can see, but again, doesn't address things that we know, the good things that are happening here.
So moving on to the next slide. This is more information about your credit rating, but what we're looking at here is how does the direct debt per capita, which is one of the metrics that goes into that debt and liability score, one of the more important metrics that goes into that direct debt and liability score, how does that compare to the village's peer group? So, historically, the village has remained among the lowest among its peer group regarding that direct debt per capita. Obviously, with a plan to issue over $100 million of bonds over the next several years, that number will go up. But even as it increases, it's going to hit a maximum of roughly $3,200 or $3,250 per person in the village. But even then, it's still within that middle range of its peer group. You can see that some of these other communities that had recent spikes in 2020 or 2021 was due to borrowings to pay down pension obligations. And the assumptions here do not illustrate any potential increase in peer borrowing, so obviously we don't know if these other communities will be assuming additional borrowings beyond what they already have, issued, or how much. So.
So we can turn it over to Tom again.
Or I think.
Yeah, okay. So I can go on. So.
Well, no, I think sorry about that. Okay. Sorry to interrupt. The rest of the information here is really just provided as a reference. Right. As we mentioned at the outset, we did have fairly robust conversations at Finance Committee, both in June and then earlier this month on the 2nd. So we did want to provide some of that context as that what those conversations covered, what the alternative case that was discussed at those meetings was, et cetera. We will try and wrap our portion of the presentation up here this evening. But just going back to tonight's agenda, again, the first item on the action item agenda is a resolution, a reimbursement resolution, which does provide flexibility for staff to begin planning some of these projects and it allows staff to appropriately phase out borrowings to the extent that a single bond issue in a given year is the right path. They are able to start spending money on projects prior to that actual borrowing. And then the second, one last thing I'll make clear is that any potential bond issue in the future will require further board authorization. So it doesn't, there's no authorization for any bonds except for the second action item is for the 2026A bonds, which will fund the Oak Park Avenue streetscape plan, our project, which is currently under construction, either via resolution or via reimbursement, for which a reimbursement resolution was passed in May of this year, or to the extent that the issuance is completed and there's still outstanding invoices on that project, either pay as those come in or via resolution or reimbursement, excuse me. With that, we're happy to answer any questions or turn it back over to CFO Boystown.
Yeah, at this point, I know Village Hall is included, and I just want to clarify that I realize that conversation hasn't been finalized. There is going to be opportunities to decide which way we want to do it, when do we want to do it, or when does the board feel comfortable in that. So that's the only clarifying item on that. Again, at this time, we're open for questions and happy to answer any that come our way. So.
No, thank you very much. We appreciate it. Great presentation. Definitely did a great job of helping us to understand where we are and where we can be in the future years. But would love to pass it on to any of my colleagues.
Just a quick question. So the streetscape has a financing that over 20 years, and what's the expected useful life of the? Is it more than 20 or no?
It is, yeah. I mean, a lot of it depends on which items you're looking into. But for example, roads normally we depreciate it over a 30-year time frame for accounting and auditing purposes. So that's kind of the baseline that we use.
Okay. And the other question was, you mentioned just real briefly this debts and liability part of the composite score for S&P. How would that be impacted if you went to the 90% contribution, the statutory minimum versus the 100? What would that number look like? I'm just curious. Have you modeled that?
We haven't modeled that just yet. I think that is, I want to clarify that this is a step one into that long-term financial strategic planning that we're taking. That is a conversation that is coming to the Finance Committee and just getting board feedback. We know that, obviously rating agencies see that as a positive thing that you're funding your pension plan to 100%. So anything below that, there's a cost, there's other things that come along with it, but that is a model that we haven't run just yet.
I just wondered because 4.5 to 5 is not that, there's not a lot of room, right? So
I can actually add that we ran 2 analyses. We did one where we showed what the current debt would look like and what impact that would have on the village. And then we did a worst case scenario. And with the worst case scenario, there was no change from the AA rated, given, that's right, with everything being constant. And so we did push the limit to see what that impact would look like without putting a number in, so to speak, but just giving that worst case rating in that one category. And so we still did not see a significant change in the AA rated for the village.
Okay. Thank you.
Any more questions?
Great presentation and great document, really, truly. I mean, it explains so much and so well. There's a lot here, but when I sat down with CFO Kevin and went through it, and with Manager Jackson too, like this just was easy. So I appreciate it. You guys obviously did a great job on that. A couple things here. One thing I feel like I'm duty bound to note is that we're talking about a bond measure that will be over the course of its entirety when it pays back in 30 years, will be roughly between $250 million and $300 million. And this room is now empty. Whereas we were full with a bunch of people talking about property taxes, and this has a material impact on the property taxes outlined in the document. And there is no one here to see it. Oh, yeah, well, you're always here. You're always here. You're here more than I am. My point being is that there are if you want, you have to be engaged if you want to have a voice, right? And you were already here, and then you left, and now we're actually talking about the very thing that you said you were concerned about, and this is concrete. Everything else is maybe. And there's no one here to give us feedback. I would like the feedback. I want the engagement. That's why these meetings are held in public. That out of the way. I will note that the median property in here, $450,000, is affordable to approximately 24% of Black people in Oak Park. That is with a roughly $100,000 down payment and needing an income of $120,000. That same property is affordable to 52% of white people in Oak Park. If we're talking about why we're doing this, these numbers illustrate why we're doing zoning change. And also note, too, because Oak Park is more affluent, even amongst Black folks, that when you look at the Cook County demographics, it's only affordable to 16% of the black people in Oak Park. In Cook County. The numbers just get worse. The further further you ratchet down the down payment, right, the more money you actually have to earn, and the more compressed the number of people who actually qualify. So when you finally get down to, say, an FHA loan of 3.5% with 28% down, so which is roughly $30,000 after closing costs and such, you need to have an income of $186,000, which is roughly affordable to 11% of black people in Oak Park, or 550 people. That same house, $450,000 now, which is, there's only one detached single-family home on Redfin right now for $450,000 or less, is still affordable to 5,500 white people, or roughly 37% of Oak Park. So, my point there is obvious, so I'll just let it there. I did leave it there. I am fully in support of this financial plan. I don't have a preference between one or two. If we want to go for consistency, that's great. If we want to go to reduce the spend, that's great. I probably would lean towards reducing the spend because consistency is not guaranteed here, right? Property taxes swerve all over the place. There are 6 different government bodies, all of them raising property taxes in all kinds of ways, and all having a bid to do referendums and buy new swimming pools, which is our thing here. There's never going to be any consistency or of expectation of property tax year to year. So I could lean towards the one that has the lower overall payment.
I could just chime in real quick. Yeah, I appreciate. Thanks again for being here so late. Sorry about that. But yeah, this is all. I'm on the finance committee, so this is all familiar to me. Thank you again for presenting it so expeditiously. Jim kind of asked the question. I had a similar question, which is how much additional could we borrow, and before we get bumped into that AA minus range? And do you have a number, or is that actually?
It did not. That one category in itself
won't
not
change
create a change, because it's not just the one category that's looked at, right?
Got it.
There are other categories, and so when we did a worst case scenario, it did not change the.
So in other words, even if the debt liability score became a 5,
Yeah.
which is the worst score.
It does. There's no 6. It's 5. Like
Five is the worst.
we somehow borrow $1 billion.
Right.
It's still 5.
Now, there's always
in theory.
There's always the qualitative, subjective perspective that S&P. So even if their metrics and their scorecard don't support a particular rating, they might penalize you nonetheless.
Okay, got it. Okay, yeah, I appreciate that. I was just kind of curious because I think so. The reason I was in favor of scenario 1 is that it does provide the consistency, and I hear you, Corey. It's hard to predict that, right? That was one reason, but the other reason, which was that it was that the amount of money that borrowing capacity that becomes available sooner. I think it's in 2032. There's a big drop, and so in the more it's like sort of 6-7 year term, that there's more opportunity for the board to act if they need to borrow more money sooner. And so that's the major reason why. It just sort of gives more options sooner. And as you can see on this chart that I'm showing here, the capacity kind of continues to grow over time as that 3% accrues. So that was the main reason I chose scenario 1, even though there is a cost associated with that. It's about an 8% increase, I think, roughly by my math, in terms of how much the overall debt costs. But I thought that was a worthwhile exchange. So, and I think Jim also was on scenario 1, and I think Vicky, but Brian, I think was, don't want to speak for you, Brian, but Brian was, I think, more interested in scenario 2. So anyways, just want to try to quickly summarize some of those discussions.
Thank you. Brian, do you got anything?
Yeah, Derek is right. I was on scenario 2. I think that one of the things that scenario 2 does that scenario 1 does not do is, rather than focusing on keeping the total bond level over the course of the life of the bond. It keeps each of the issuances level over the course of that bond issuance. And so as a result, it stair steps down more consistently as prior bond issuances are fully paid. And what that does is it creates a great deal more capacity in 2041 than scenario 1 does. So in addition to overall being cheaper, it is more consistent on each bond issuance, which means as bonds roll off, it creates capacity for future boards. You know, we're doing a pretty good job here of planning, you know, capital expenses that are going to be, you know, the significant capital expenses we're going to see over the next 10 or 15 years. Derek's highlighting that in scenario 1, we get a little bit more ability to do a new bond issuance in like 6 years. I'm more focused on whether the village is going to have the capacity in 15 years to do additional bond issuances. And so I thought that the best way to keep it level is by stair stepping it down so that each board can issue level debt, and it'll stay level through that rolling bonds falling off approach. That's not the best descriptor because I'm a little bit tired, but I think it gets the point across, and I'm fine with the finance committee's recommendation, but that was and is my position on the preference. I think just, you know, as Kevin noted at the start of this conversation, item J is really, it's about sort of how we intend to issue debt rather than it being about we're agreeing to all of these plans, because you know, we're not tying the next board's hands on what debt they choose to issue. We're going to issue, we're going to vote on the 2026 A bonds in the next agenda item, but this is just what the structure that the board intends to take as a policy matter for debt in these next couple issuances will look like, so that when they come before the new boards, it's saying, again, this is the structure that the board agreed to. We're just, you know, talking about how much debt, which projects, those kinds of things.
All right, we'll take this to vote now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Clerk Waters, could you call the roll?
For J. So this is item J.
Trustee Eder?
Yes.
Trustee Levin Jacobson?
Yes.
Trustee Straw?
Yes.
Trustee Taglia?
Yes.
Trustee Wesley?
Yes.
President Pro Tem Enyia?
Yes. Before we move on to the next item, there was a non-agenda public comment. I apologize if you're. Yeah.
Consent agenda. Is this agenda item D? That was on consent. So we'll
Consent,
take
sorry,
it.
consent. Sorry.
Yes, you can come up. Yes, thank you so much.
Nice and easy for you all. It's a simple one.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name's Owen Jones. I live on the corner of Taylor and Superior. I'm here representing my neighbors on the 300 North Taylor block and our surrounding community. Over the last year, we worked on a petition to get a stop sign put in at our intersection. It's a pretty minor thing, but it's taken a long time, and there's some nuance that I wanted to talk to you all about. We really appreciate the village's attention to this intersection. I support the currently proposed traffic calming measures, but we're asking the board to strengthen that plan or replace it, frankly, by adding a four-way stop sign. That's all we have been asking for, or at minimum to keep this matter open until the all-way stop receives a complete evidence-backed investigation. This is specifically because the village has already identified our intersection as uniquely very dangerous. Civil Tech's traffic study in response to our petition for a four-way stop showed 5 crashes in 5 years, which the Traffic Commission called, I quote, preposterous. And that number is actually already out of date since we had the meeting. Every single one was a right-angle collision. Civil Tech themselves says the core problem was clearly a right-of-way confusion issue, that none of the drivers knew who had right-of-way coming down Superior. There were 3 reasons why Civil Tech said no in their recommendation, and frankly, my neighbors and I believe that they're all insubstantial and warrant further investigation. Number 1 is they cite low speeds and traffic at the intersection. That's not related to what we were asking about, and they said that the cause of this is specifically right-of-way confusion, not traffic or the number of vehicles. Number 2 was that we're under a federal benchmark for the number of crashes required to consider a four-way stop sign. You need to have 6 in 36 months. We're at 5, and 1 hasn't technically been counted yet. A June 15th crash, the worst one yet, where unfortunately my neighbors and I had to watch a young child get taken away in an ambulance, hasn't even been added to the list. But the federal guidance immediately after their recommendation, like the sentence afterwards, says that the number is not the only consideration. You have to subjectively consider the experience of the people in the community. And that's why my community members and I were interested in this petition. And the third one was that there's already a stop sign 400 feet away. They were arguing that this means there might be more frustration or lower compliance, but in the written record, there's no citation, no local observation, no comparable Oak Park data, no federal law that's being implicated here, so it's literally just an assertion that's not backed by evidence. The study's already outdated. Like I mentioned, there was an accident that was so bad that I watched 2 police officers shovel debris from my front yard. There were 2 cars crashed into the 2 trees in front of my property, and immediately after that, there was a child taken away in an ambulance. So in closing, we just really think this deserves to be considered more deeply. It seems like we're right on the precipice of, getting what we asked for. If the issue is ambiguity, their recommendations make people aware of the fact it's ambiguous, but we could just go all the way and remove the ambiguity. So, it's kind of pedantic, but we just ask that the commission considers this more deeply or puts it back for review. That's really all we're looking for. So thank you for your time tonight. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you for the fortitude of staying through the meeting. Your neighbors should be proud. No, thank you. It's interesting you say that only because I almost got hit at the same intersection 5 hours ago.
Oh, wow, really?
Yeah. Yeah, we both, the driver looked at me and I looked at her and I was like, I think this is your fault, but,
Yep. Screaming at each other, it's countless. We're talking dozens and dozens of times a month. It's a pretty granular, pedantic thing, but the evidence says outright it's because of the lack of a stop sign. So we really appreciate the consideration for the other elements, but we really think just going all the way and adding a four-way stop would solve the issue, so we're not back here in a year or 2 years asking for the same thing.
Yeah, right on.
Yeah, thank you. Definitely we'll take it under consideration. If there's a person who motions it later, that can definitely be addressed sooner than later. Thank you.
Is that Transportation Commission?
Transportation Commission.
Are we going to refer to the Transportation Commission? Is that the?
Yeah.
It's already been
okay.
Oh, it's already been brought.
Okay. It's already been approved. But if someone wants to do a motion, a follow-up motion to request that the Transportation Commission reconsider it, we could do that. But it's already been approved tonight.
Okay. Oh, yeah, so it is already under consideration. He's just pointing. Okay, all right, thank you. Thank you so much. I truly appreciate that. And we turn myself off. We'll now address item K, which is an ordinance providing for the issue of not to exceed $18 million general obligation corporate purpose bond series 2026A of the Village of Oak Park, Cook County, Illinois, for the purpose of financing streetscapes and infrastructure improvements with the village, providing for the levy and collection of a direct annual tax sufficient to pay the principal and interest on said bonds, and authorizing the sale of said bonds to the purchaser thereof. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second. Sorry, Corey.
All right. Are we just taking the roll now?
I'm ready to vote. Yeah, I feel like it was covered. Yeah, unless
It's a roll call.
Yeah. Brian, are you okay?
I vote yes.
Roll call.
He's
One
so
second,
ready.
we got to do the roll call.
He votes.
Trustee Living Jacobson?
Yes.
Trustee Eder?
Yes.
Trustee Straw?
Yes.
Trustee Taglia?
Yes.
Trustee Wesley?
Yes.
And President Pro Tem Enyia?
Yes. All right. Items L, or do you want to? So items L and item M will be moved on to the next board meeting on, what date is that?
Yes, so item M will likely be rescheduled for the next board meeting. Yes, but item L, we will likely find a new date sometime, probably early September.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Go ahead.
With the budget process kicking off, especially with the capital improvement plan, I mean, I don't know how long we expect the discussion on this one to go, but it seems like pushing this to September really impacts the capital improvement projects conversation.
Could we refer it to Finance Committee? Could we do it there, or does it need to be addressed at this table first?
I think what the decision we were looking for from the board, or direction I should say, was to select an option to refer to the Finance Committee for future planning. So to simply refer it to the Finance Committee, it would be going to the Finance Committee without that board direction on one particular option. Okay. So I think we need that one option, right?
Where's the chief one?
He left.
All right. No.
So, it'll be a longer meeting next week if we were to try to do it next week, and I'd have to check the schedules of of Corrigan and Clark to make sure that they're able to make it, but they are local, so there could be an opportunity there next week. But next week is summarily.
Yeah, we shouldn't pack it too much, that's for sure. Okay, all right.
I mean, if anything changes and we hear back from you that it's something that could be squeezed into the schedule, I'm sure you'll let us know before it's posted to the community. So
I mean, I know which option I'm in favor of for this, if we're ready to talk about it, but I don't want to presume if folks I know the chief's not here. I know there was a presentation, so.
It's up to you. I like postponing it.
Yeah.
just to let the chief be here and let us know of anything that we
I think
might.
so. I think it'd probably be,
But like I said, if we hear anything and we're able to get it into that meeting, great. If not, I understand. Thank you for that. I know we're at 11:10 already, so most of our viewers have tuned out, but we've still got all of you amazing people in the crowd. So if we can't, if that is all, go ahead.
I just want to confirm, so agenda items L and M are being tabled for a later meeting?
Yes.
Okay.
That's correct.
All right, thank you.
All right.
Reschedule. Yes.
Perfect. If that's it, then we'll take it to call to the board, and I'll start with Clerk Waters.
Skip.
Yeah, I've done enough talking.
Trustee Taglia.
I think I've done enough too. Thank you.
Okay, pass.
It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. Pass.
Trustee
I've
Swell?
got a 7-part call to the board, so I appreciate everybody's long service tonight. I'll see you all next week.
Same. I don't have much to say, but thank you, Mr. Kell, for coming in and continuing to keep us honest. I do appreciate that. We constantly talk about community members tuning in, but not always staying tuned in. And you were making sure your neighbors knew, so I truly appreciate that. Thank you for that. And for everybody else that came in with the thoughtful comments, I truly appreciate that. And we are trying to continue to grow as a community, and we thank you all for your input. To President Skaman, I was just filling in for today. She'll be back in the next meeting. Wishes that she could be here, but she's with her family, and that time is earned. So thank you all. Have a great evening. Let me get a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I want to go. No one said that yet? No one's ever done that?